Chapter 26. Yihua looked at Long Haochen and snorted, "Smelly brat, this is your trump card, right?" Long Haochen lowered his head. "Teacher," Yihua waved his hand and said, "You don't need to say any more. Actually, when Fatty Nailan asked me to teach you, I already knew that you have another inheritance. Otherwise, how could you have that kind of cultivation at such a young age? Your inheritance is from your father, right?" Long Haochen nodded. Yihua patted his shoulder. "Don't think too much, I don't mean to blame you. However, your luck is really not too good. You encountered a rank 5 opponent in this round. Although you won, your trump card was also exposed." Long Haochen looked at the worry revealed in Yihua's eyes, and his heart suddenly warmed up. He moved closer to Yihua's ear and whispered something in an extremely low voice. Yihua's eyes immediately widened, and he looked at him with an astonished expression. Long Haochen nodded towards him. Yihua's ice-cold face revealed a trace of a smile that was uglier than crying, and he gave him a thumbs up. "Teacher, what's going on with a retainer knight?" Long Haochen asked doubtfully. Yihua said, "This time, you can be considered to have picked up a bargain. A retainer knight is like a magician's retainer warrior, but the difference is that a retainer knight can be said to be your servant, not your partner. If he makes a vow, then when you encounter danger, he can only die in front of you forever. He is equivalent to a living shield. According to the rules of monster hunters, retainers are originally not allowed to exist, but a retainer knight is an exception. If a knight is a disciplined knight, then they are allowed to have a retainer knight who practices guardian. Because for monster hunters, the role of a guardian knight is too important. However, almost no knight is willing to be someone else's retainer. So, this time, you can be considered to have picked up a treasure. Your retainer is a grade 5 knight, which will be of great benefit to your future position and survival ability among the monster hunters. Moreover, to be able to cultivate to the 5th tier before the age of 25, I'm afraid his background is not simple." Long Haochen scratched his head and said, "But his cultivation is higher than mine, he might not be convinced." Yihua smiled mysteriously. "You underestimate the oath of a retainer knight too much. No matter how proud he is, under the oath, you are his sky, his master. No matter how unwilling he was in his heart, he could only think for you and serve you. However, becoming your retainer knight is also beneficial to him. At least he can follow you into monster hunters. Otherwise, he would be eliminated and would never be able to enter monster hunters again. As for 5 years later, I'm afraid he can only look up to your achievements." "Teacher, then I'll go back first to heal my injuries and prepare for tomorrow's competition." Long Haochen did not forget the promise he made with Kai Er. Now that the competition was over, he immediately felt eager to return home. Yihua nodded and said, "Go, but you don't have to be too hasty, you don't have to participate in tomorrow's competition." Long Haochen looked at him in surprise. Lin Xian, who was at the side, laughed and said, "Silly little brother, did you forget about the empty slot? Unless someone can defeat a grade 5 knight today, do you think this empty slot will escape from your hands?" Long Haochen suddenly understood. "That's right. Based on my performance in defeating Han Yu, I should be able to get this empty slot. If it was just a competition, perhaps he would not be interested in this empty slot, because he hoped to improve his combat experience and stimulate his potential through continuous combat. However, the situation in the past few days was different. He had already touched the threshold of liquefying spiritual power, and he had figured out the training method of accumulating power as the main skill. Under such circumstances, he needed to meditate more. After leaving the knight's trial field, Long Haochen could not wait to run in the direction where he and Kai Er had agreed. From afar, he could already see Kai Er standing there quietly, like a statue standing on the street. Her outfit did not change at all, and she stood there quietly with the green bamboo cane in her hand on the ground in front of her. The sunlight shone on her body, seemingly making her feel a little more warm, and also making her purple hair shine a little more brightly. Kai Long Houchen shouted and quickly ran over. Hearing his voice, Kai Er's body moved slightly, but just as Long Houchen was about to get close to her, he clearly felt a strong chill emanating from her body. Kai what's wrong? Long Houchen was shocked and quickly stopped. Kai Er's voice had a coldness that Long Houchen had never heard before. You're injured? Who hurt you? As she spoke, she raised a hand and naturally grabbed Long Houchen's hand. Long Houchen asked curiously, How do you know I'm injured? Kai said, I can hear it. Although I can't see, my hearing is better than ordinary people's. You don't have enough qi in your body, you're obviously injured. At this moment, the chill on her body slightly dissipated, and she also loosened her grip on Long Houchen's hand. Long Houchen laughed and said, It's nothing, I'm participating in the Alliance's Monster Hunters trials. Today, I met a very strong opponent, so I was slightly injured, but it's not a big deal. Anyway, I won. Oh yes, I haven't told you, I'm a knight. My performance today was good, so tomorrow's round should be empty, so I'll be in the top 10 in the preliminary round. Kai nodded gently, the chill on her body had completely dissipated. Let's go, I'll send you back. This time, it was Long Houchen who took the initiative to hold her little hand, and slowly pulled her towards Kai Er's residence. The two of them walked slowly, and once again entered that tranquil atmosphere. Long Houchen walked very slowly, like a child who had just learned to walk. The sun shone on their bodies, and that kind of warm feeling gave birth to a strange feeling in their hearts. Their hearts were somewhat unable to calm down. However, no matter how slow they walked, there would eventually be an end. The moment they stopped, the strange feeling in Long Houchen's heart suddenly turned into reluctance. Holding the warm, soft little hand, he really couldn't bear to let go just like that. Go back and rest early. I'll wait for you tomorrow. Kai said softly. Okay. I'll definitely come early. Tomorrow's round is empty, so I can wait for you first. Long Houchen hurriedly promised. What he was most afraid to hear was Kai saying that she didn't need him to send her off. Reluctantly letting go of her hand, she said, Go in. I'll leave after you go in. Kai shook her head and said, I want to listen to your footsteps as you leave, okay? For some reason, whenever Long Houchen looked at her lifeless eyes, he couldn't say anything to reject her. Okay, then you have to be careful when you go back. Don't work so hard in the next competition, Kai suddenly said. Long Houchen laughed and said, It's not about working hard, it's about working hard. If I don't work hard to become stronger, how can I protect you? After saying this, he clearly felt his heart beating faster. He didn't dare to stay any longer, so he said goodbye to Kai and quickly walked away. Quietly listening to his footsteps as he left, Kai-er's face slightly turned cold. He's injured. Fortunately, it's not serious. A touch of killing intent flashed from her body. The third day of the Monster Hunters preliminaries gradually passed. Because the number of matches was reduced, the matches of the 6 Great Temple had all ended in the afternoon. Lin Xian's luck was obviously not as bad as Long Houchen's. Facing an opponent who wasn't weak, but whose mount wasn't as good as hers, she once again displayed the strength of Rose and her own advantages as a punishment knight, successfully rushing through the third round. This was already something that Yi Hua couldn't have imagined. Just as they guessed, the other 3 rank 5 knight had all advanced, and Long Houchen had undoubtedly become the empty candidate for the next round. Temple League Knight Chief's office. An old man sat behind the office desk, quietly looking at a stack of documents in his hands. The old man had a head of silver hair. Although he was sitting there, one could see that he was tall and big. His shoulders were especially broad, and his age didn't affect the dignified aura he emitted. This old man was the highest decision-maker of the Temple League's Holy City headquarters for the Knights Templars. In the entire Knights Templars, his position was second only to the 3 Knight of the Seal, the Holy Knight Chief. He was also the person who sat in the center of the main seat at the night trial field's rostrum. Knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked on the door. Come in. The Holy Knight Chief slowly raised his head and said faintly. The door opened, and the person who walked in from the outside was Han Yu, who had a head of short brown hair and a muscular body. However, at this time, there was no longer any pride on his face, only a combination of anxiety, pain, depression, and various other emotions. Seeing that it was him, the Holy Knight Chief's face suddenly darkened, and he casually threw the stack of documents of the top 19 contestants on the table. Bang! Han Yu's fist hit his chest, and he respectfully gave the Holy Knight Chief a knight's salute. The Holy Knight Chief only looked at him coldly, and did not say a word. Han Yu's forehead was obviously sweating, and he lowered his head, not saying a word. Kneel. The Holy Knight Chief slammed the table, and his beard and hair stood on end. The powerful pressure instantly caused the air in the entire room to slightly distort. With a puff, Han Yu's knees went soft, and he was already kneeling on the ground, his face even paler. In front of the Holy Knight Chief's terrifying pressure, he was like a straw that could break at any time. The Holy Knight Chief slowly stood up, and walked out from behind the table. He raised his hand and pointed at Han Yu. Good? You are really good. Aren't you always very proud? Don't you always think that you are the number one of the younger generation? Are you satisfied now? You didn't even pass the preliminary round, and you were beaten by a rank 4 opponent without being able to fight back. You are so heroic. Han Yu lowered his head, and with a sad face he said, Grandpa, I was wrong. It's all my fault, I made you lose face. Don't call me Grandpa, I don't have a grandson like you. The Holy Knight Chief lifted his leg and kicked Han Yu. Even now, you still don't know where you are wrong. Do you think that I'm angry at you for losing today's match because you embarrassed me? You are wrong. Let me tell you, I am ashamed because I, Han Q, actually raised a grandson who is not even worthy to be a knight. This shame is something I brought upon myself. This Saint Knight head was seething with anger. Do you think I expelled you from the Knight Temple in the training field out of anger? No. I expelled you because you really don't have the qualifications to become a knight. The first of the 10 rules of a knight is humility. Where is your humility? There is only pride in your heart. Do you think that being able to break through to rank 5 at the age of 22 is already amazing? Do you know? The kid who defeated you today is only 14 years old. 14 years old. Compared to him, you can't even be considered as trash. Hearing the words 14 years old, Han Yu was stunned. No, this is impossible. Han Q looked at his grandson coldly. Impossible? How can the bone age assessment be wrong? I was the one who personally gave the order to suppress the news of his age. Isn't your wish to become a Knight of the Seal? With your current virtue, even if one day you have that kind of cultivation, you will only be a fallen knight. Arrogant, complacent, and even after losing the match, you still want to act shamelessly. You did not make me lose face, you made the Knights Templars lose face. If it weren't for my brothers holding me back, I would really want to slap you to death. Han Yu's body began to tremble slightly. Since young, although he had put in a lot of effort in training, as a favored son of heaven, he had never encountered any setbacks. Today's defeat was a huge blow to him. Long Houchen's combo shattered all the pride in his heart. He suddenly felt that he was not as strong as he thought he was. Han Q said coldly, You only have 2 choices now. First, let me cripple your spiritual power and kick you out of Knights Templars. You are my grandson after all. I will give you a sum of money and let you live a wealthy life. If you choose this option, I will personally ask Long Houchen to release you from the oath. As for the second option, you know it. Han Yu's body trembled as he slowly raised his head. Grandpa, is he really only 14 years old? The anger on Han Q's face seemed to have calmed down a little, and he nodded his head firmly. From the past 3 days of competition, this child Long Houchen has a persevering, kind, persistent, and brave personality. From him, I seem to see the glory of a knight. If you follow him, you need to learn his attitude as a knight. Don't think that being a retainer knight is shameful. As long as he doesn't die, in the future, he will definitely shock the entire alliance, and even the demons of a generation. Following him, under his spur, will only be good for you to improve. Otherwise, after 5 years, you won't be able to see his back anymore. Han Yu knelt down again, and kowtowed 3 times to Han Q. Grandpa, in 5 years, I will definitely make you look at me in a different light. After saying this, he stood up, and once again gave a knight's salute to Han Q, turned around, and strode away. Looking at his departing figure, the anger on Han Q's face suddenly disappeared, and was replaced with a faint smile. Long Haochen, I really should thank you. In fact, I've long discovered this problem with this kid Han Yu, but I haven't found a good opportunity to give him a heavy blow. Although this child Yu Er is easily arrogant, he has a temperament that doesn't admit defeat, and will only become braver the more he suffers. Being together with Long Haochen will only be good for his future. Perhaps they can really achieve God's seal together. I just don't know where Long Haochen's inheritance came from. The Retribution Knight's skill can even skip a rank to learn a rank 5 holy sword. His surname is Long, could he be? Thinking of this, Han Q's face suddenly showed a trace of surprise. He let Han Yu follow Long Haochen for a reason. First, Han Yu lost the competition, and lost the qualification to enter the Monster Hunters, which can be said to be the heaviest blow to his future growth. And after becoming Long Haochen's retainer knight, although his reputation is not good, he can still participate in the Monster Hunters. Secondly, Han Q thinks very highly of Long Haochen. With Han Yu protecting him, it will greatly increase Long Haochen's chances of survival when carrying out the Monster Hunters mission. At the same time, Han Yu and Long Haochen have been together for 5 years, and it is not difficult to establish a friendship. If Long Haochen achieves God's seal in the future, it will also be very good for this grandson of his. His deep and astute schemes are not something that Yi Hua can completely guess. Of course, if it wasn't because of Han Yu's serious arrogance, Han Q would not be willing to let this talented grandson of his become someone else's retainer. The 3rd day of the preliminary stage of the Monster Hunters trials has ended, and it has already entered the final stage. Among them, the Assassin Temple, the Soul Temple, and the Temple of the Priests have already decided on the top 10. Next, the most important thing is the fight for the ranking. Because there is no one on the 4th day of the competition, Long Haochen did not go to the trial field at all. Late in the morning, he came to the place where he meets Kai Er every day and silently waited. The trial field of the assassin. There are only the last 10 people left in the resting area, but the gazes of 9 of them all fall on the same person. Kai Er sits there quietly, but her lifeless eyes clearly bring a lot of pressure to the other 9 participants. Looking at the green bamboo staff in her hand that seems to be harmless to humans and animals, almost all of the other participants are secretly praying that they will not encounter her. 5th rank assassin, secret technique, shadow clone. Among this year's participants, the only 5th rank assassin from the Assassin Temple. Just as everyone is watching her, Kai Er, who exudes a cold aura, slowly stands up from the first row, slightly bows in the direction of the rostrum, and uses her unique cold voice to say, "I forfeit the remaining matches of the preliminary stage." After saying this, under the dumbfounded gazes of the other 9 participants, she tapped the ground with her green bamboo staff, and walked out of the holy temple of assassins amidst the sounds of talk, talk, talk. Standing on the street waiting for Kai Er, Long Haochen, for the first time, has the time to calm down and admire the largest city in the Alliance. Most of the buildings on both sides of the street are high-rise buildings, and most of them are embossed with reliefs, showing the ancient charm of the city. Yesterday's injury has completely healed. It was not too serious to begin with, and with Long Haochen using the Guardian Knight skill to heal himself, he has fully recovered. The battle with the 5th rank knight also gave him a deeper understanding of his own abilities. After a day and a night of training, his spiritual energy has increased by a lot. Especially after training with the Ready skill, he has a deeper understanding of liquid spiritual energy. Long Houchen is confident that if he continues to train like this, he will have a chance to break through the 5th rank in 10 days. Dad said that when I reach the 7th rank Temple Knight level, I will have the qualifications to find him and Mom. Knock, knock, knock. A unique and familiar sound pulls Long Houchen back from his thoughts. Kai Er. Looking at Kai Er, who is slowly walking over, a burst of joy from the bottom of his heart, Long Houchen runs over and holds her small hand. Kai Er smiles and says, "Have you been waiting for a long time?" Long Houchen shakes his head. "No, I just got here." "Do you wait for me so early every day?" Kai Er shakes her head. "Not really, I don't know the exact time I come back every day. But in the next few days, I will come back a little earlier." Holding her soft little hand, Long Houchen's heart is warm, but this kind of warmth is different from when he is with his parents. He doesn't know what Kai Er gave up in order to not let him wait too long. Hand in hand, with that hazy, purest feeling, their figures gradually disappear under the sun. "Kai Er, how long can you stay in the Holy City?" Long Houchen finally musters up the courage to ask when they are about to part. Kai Er is silent for a moment. "Why do you ask this?" Long Houchen's heart suddenly tightens, a little embarrassed. I just want to know how many days before I can send you back." Kai Er falls into silence again. The two of them stand face to face. Long Houchen's hands are sweating. Feeling the wetness of his palms, Kai Er whispers, "I am just a blind girl, is it really that important to send me back?" Long Houchen is stunned for a moment, but honestly says, I don't know." Kai Er is also stunned. Although girls are more open to feelings than boys, her life experience is more simple than Long Houchen's. "Don't you dislike me?" Kai Er says with her head lowered. Long Houchen's heart is suddenly filled with pity, holding her hand in front of him. "Why would I dislike you?" He doesn't know why, at this moment, his heart is filled with a feeling of apprehension. He only feels that if he doesn't give a good answer, he may never see the girl in front of him again. "Kai Er, actually I am very ugly. I am so ugly myself, what right do I have to dislike you?" Long Houchen says in a panic. Kai Er is stunned. "Very ugly?" "Yes, very ugly." Long Houchen hurriedly affirms. Kai Er smiles, although he can't see her face through the veil, but Long Houchen subconsciously feels that her smile is very beautiful, very beautiful. "Then, if I asked you to hold my hand forever, would you be willing?" Kai Er's voice is very soft, but it is close to a whisper. When she said this, her exposed slender white neck was already red with embarrassment. "I would." Long Houchen's mood at this time is in a strange state, almost blurting out without hesitation. This time it is Kai Er's turn to be a little flustered. She pulls her hand out of Long Houchen's. I will go back first." Long Houchen hurriedly says, Then tomorrow I will send you back." "Yes." Gently nodding, the frequency of the green bamboo stick on the ground at least doubled than usual, Kai Er runs back to the hotel as if escaping. His words keep echoing in her heart. He actually said that I am ugly? My beautiful face that is like a girl's is ugly? She has never felt a warmth quietly flowing in her heart. How can she not understand that he is trying to comfort her? Long Houchen can't help but laugh. Although he is still young and doesn't understand the relationship between a man and a woman, his perception is much more sensitive than ordinary people. He can clearly feel that Kai Er's attitude towards him seems to have changed a little, a good change. With a happy mood, Long Houchen returns to the hotel, but before he calms down and starts to practice, there is an urgent knock on the door. Houchen, Lin Xian calls excitedly. Long Houchen is startled. He hurriedly goes to open the door. Lin Xian looks a little embarrassed. At least 3 parts of her armor are broken, her hair is messy, and there is a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth, but her mood is obviously in a state of excitement. As soon as she sees Long Houchen, she immediately hugs him and excitedly says, I won, I won. Houchen, I am also in the top 10. Both of us can join the monster hunters. Long Houchen suddenly realizes he is also overjoyed. Sister, you won? You are really great. Congratulations. Lin Xian says proudly, Yes, my luck is so good. I still haven't met a fifth-order opponent today. Haha, I'm amazing, right? Although it was a narrow victory, it was still a victory. Dad would be proud of me. Lin Xian's cultivation was not outstanding among the participating knight. In fact, she could even be ranked at the bottom. However, she had trained in the punishment knight. Coupled with the timely advancement of the Rose Unicorn and her good luck, she was able to defeat the knight. He actually broke through the crowd and passed the preliminary round together with Long Houchen. Lin Xian smiled and said, Unfortunately, we are both knight. I can't be with a monster hunter like you. Otherwise, it would be even more perfect. Long Houchen chuckled and said, It doesn't matter. You will always be my sister. Tonight is indeed worth celebrating. I'll treat you guys to a good meal. Yihua's gentle voice sounded, and he walked in from outside the door. He was in a really good mood. It was his goal to have Long Houchen enter the top 10, but he didn't expect that even Lin Xian could enter the top 10 as well. For the Haoyue City Knight Branch Temple, this was a great honor. There were also a lot of people who were excited. Other than the Warrior Temple, the other 5 temples had all decided on the top 10. Lin Xian was happily drinking red wine in the luxurious hotel room he was staying in. Feeling the rich fruit fragrance and the gentle sourness, he felt like he was on cloud 9. His magical control of magic power yesterday had shocked all the participating mages. There were a total of 16 magicians who entered the 4th round of the competition today. Therefore, today, the main competition and the additional competition were held to determine the top 10. The first round was to determine the top 6. The opponent who drew Lin Xian's opponent admitted defeat without hesitation. After all, there was still a chance to enter the top 10 in the additional competition. Who would be willing to fight with a guy who had such powerful control of magic? Therefore, Lin Xian entered the top 6 without any bloodshed. He obtained the qualification to participate in the finals and became a reserve member of the Monster Hunters. There was also a bald man who was equally excited. Because of his appearance, the Temple of the Priests' preliminary competition was a little chaotic. They were anxious to make new rules, but after all, the competition had already begun. There was no way to change it. Therefore, a certain bald man broke through with his tyrannical and violent performance. Not only did he enter the top 10, but because the Temple of the Priests didn't have many participants, he had already entered the top 3. Moreover, judging from the current situation, no one could compete with him for the first priest position. On the 5th day of the preliminary competition, the atmosphere in the Sanctuary Alliance's great trial field had become a lot more relaxed. Among the 6 major temples, except for the Warrior Temple, the top 10 had been decided. Next was only the ranking competition. The ranking of the temple preliminary competition was more of an honor for the participants. Although a high ranking would also receive some rewards, most of them were in terms of money. The top 3 would only receive a piece of magical equipment. This was a way for the Temple League to encourage monster hunters to complete missions. If the competition rewards were too high, wouldn't they slack off when completing missions in the future? The resting area of the night trial field seemed a little deserted. There were only 10 participants left. Including their teachers, there were less than 20 people. The biggest winner of this Monster Hunters preliminary competition was not the main cities, but the unknown Haoyue City. A small Haoyue branch temple actually had 2 outstanding young knights enter the top 10. This had never happened before, and it was also a great honor for the Knight Branch Temple of Haoyue City. Therefore, even with Yihua's cold personality, his expression today was much better than usual. Both of you don't have to worry too much about the ranking competition. The finals after that are more practical. It's more important to preserve your strength. Lin Xian listened to Yihua's words and nodded repeatedly. At this moment, her beautiful face that was full of heroic spirit revealed a silly smile from time to time. Being able to enter the top 10 and become a member of the Monster Hunters was already her biggest reward. It meant that she had the possibility of becoming a high-ranking member of the Knights Templars in the future, and it also meant that she could reach a higher level in the world of Night. She didn't even think about getting any more rankings. However, Long Haochen was silent. He looked at his teacher and thought for a while, then said, "Teacher, if I can meet that person, I hope to fight him to my heart's content." Yihua asked doubtfully, "Is there really a need for that?" Long Haochen nodded without hesitation and said, "Teacher, a battle with a strong opponent can better stimulate my potential. The battle with Han Yu the other day helped me a lot." Yihua thought for a while and said, "All right, since you have decided, I won't stop you, but you have to do what you can. In the finals later on, you still have the chance to fight against strong opponents of other professions." Okay. Long Haochen agreed. He didn't tell Yihua that his cultivation was gradually approaching the 5th rank. At this time, what he needed the most was to stimulate his potential through battles, and also to stimulate his inspiration through continuous battles, thereby breaking through the bottleneck. Long Xingwu was the strongest punishment knight in the world. Although he had only taught Long Haochen for a short period of 2 years, he had passed on almost all of his cultivation experience to Long Haochen. The most important point was that whenever he encountered a bottleneck, challenging an opponent that was stronger than him would be the best opportunity for him to break through. Long Haochen also firmly remembered his father's words in his heart, and he had tested them in actual combat. Every time he faced a strong opponent, the speed of his spiritual power cultivation would obviously increase, and his ability to use and control his skills would also evolve. Moreover, continuously challenging strong opponents would also make his mind more resolute. At this time, the drawing of lots had already begun. Long Haochen's gaze directly fell on the 3 5th-rank knights in the first row. He slowly took a deep breath, his gaze was firm, and his heart was like a boulder as he sat there quietly. Everyone else was praying that they wouldn't encounter a 5th-rank opponent, but he really hoped that he would be able to fight against such a strong opponent. Number 1, number 97. In the air, 2 huge numbers gradually became clear. The moment these numbers appeared, Long Haochen's eyes shone brightly, and he stood up with a swoosh. His originally gentle gaze almost instantly became fierce. A single-digit number, without a doubt, he would be facing another 5th-rank expert. Those who were able to remain here were all people with strong willpower, but at this time, the few 4th-rank knights looked at Long Haochen with a slightly strange gaze. Facing 2 5th-rank opponents in a row, his luck was really 2. In the first row, a young man slowly stood up, slowly turned around and looked at Long Haochen. This participant number 1, wasn't it the black-clothed young man who was provoked by Long Haochen that day? Also, among all the participants, he was the one who made Long Haochen feel the most threatened. Both of their gazes collided in the air, and their gazes became focused at the same time. After the number 1 knight made a please gesture to Long Haochen, he took large strides into the training ground, and a fierce spiritual power fluctuation rose and exploded as he walked into the training ground. At this time, Yihua didn't remind Long Haochen anything. He definitely wouldn't let his own emotions affect Long Haochen. From Long Haochen, for the first time, he saw a monstrous fighting spirit. Even when he was facing against Han Yu, he didn't have such a strong fighting spirit. In the corner of the training ground, Han Yu stood there quietly. He came early in the morning, and no matter how unwilling he was in his heart, he couldn't change his future path for the next 5 years. At this time, he hoped that Long Haochen would be able to defeat all of his opponents, and at the same time, he wanted to see how talented this 14-year-old knight that his grandfather talked about was. Slowly walking into the training ground, although Long Houchen's body wasn't strong, his footsteps were extremely heavy, and with every step he took, his aura would rise a little bit. His gaze was like a knife, staring at the black-clothed young man who was already standing in the middle of the training ground and looking at him with a burning gaze. "Do you have a mount?" the black-clothed young man quietly asked. Long Houchen shook his head, didn't hide anything, and said honestly, "Not at the moment." The black-clothed young man nodded and said, "Okay, then I won't summon a mount, and we'll have a fair fight with you." The same behavior, coming from the mouth of the black-clothed young man, didn't make Long Houchen feel proud, but confidence. Chapter 27. The first time Long Houchen saw the black-robed youth, he could sense his strength. Even after the appearance of 3 more rank 5 knight, including Han Yu, his judgment did not change. This was a kind of intuition towards danger. When the black-robed youth told Long Houchen that he would not summon his mount, the confidence he exuded was not something a proud person could possess. His deep eyes stared at Long Houchen. From his eyes, Long Houchen could not see any emotions. As they faced each other, Long Houchen's eyes burned with fighting spirit. Although he was only 14 years old, and his figure could not be compared to the black-robed youth, who was clearly over 20 years old, his aura was not inferior at all. There was a world of difference between the two of them at this moment. Long Houchen was like an incomparably sharp sword, showing off its edge. The rising fighting spirit made him like a volcano that could erupt at any time. The black-robed youth was as calm as hell, deep like a bottomless abyss, devouring Long Houchen's fighting spirit. Coincidentally, the referee was still the same one who was in charge of the match between Long Houchen and Han Yu. He shouted in a deep voice, "The match begins. My name is Yang Wenjiao. Perhaps in the near future, you will become a very good opponent for me." A smile appeared on the black-robed youth's face, and his aura suddenly changed. Just a moment ago, he was still deep and calm, but now, he was so fleeting that Long Houchen could not catch him. "My name is Long Houchen, and now I am also your opponent," Long Houchen said in a deep voice. "Before you defeat me, the outcome of the match is still unknown. You can also summon your mount, that is your right." Yang Wenjiao shook his head indifferently. "Let's begin." As he spoke, his hands suddenly opened on both sides of his body, and 2 golden rays shot out from his hands, turning into 2 identical golden swords. Without a doubt, he also had a storage-type magical equipment on him. Discipline Knight. Long Houchen's pupils contracted slightly. His eyes flickered with a divine light. He also separated his hands, and the light sword and fire sword instantly appeared in his hands. That's right, this was a duel between the Punishment Knight. When the dense spiritual energy suddenly erupted, Long Houchen and Yang Wenjiao moved at the same time. Long Houchen charged at Yang Wenjiao like an arrow. This was the first time he took the initiative to attack since he joined the Monster Hunter's trial. Faith Aura, Guardian's Grace, and True Shot Aura. 3 buffs from the Guardian Knight instantly appeared. Long Houchen, who was in the form of a Punishment Knight, was the first to use a Guardian Knight skill. The reason why very few people chose to dual cultivate protection and punishment was because there were too many skills for both. Using any skill required the support of spiritual energy. The stronger the cultivation, the stronger the skill, the more spiritual energy consumption. Practicing both protection and punishment at the same time would inevitably lead to excessive spiritual energy consumption when continuously using various skills. Moreover, it was very likely that the 2 skills would not be able to be practiced to perfection. However, Long Houchen was an exception. His innate internal spiritual energy was an unprecedented 97 point. This terrifying innate internal spiritual energy caused him to consume much less spiritual energy than other knights when using skills. Not only that, it was also much easier for him to understand all the light attribute skills compared to others. In the past 5 years, Long Haochen had studied under Long Xingwu and Yi Hua. Behind his outstanding talent, he had also put in a lot of effort. In the entire Haoyue Palace, it was impossible to find a knight who was more diligent than Long Haochen. Success required 99% of hard work and 1% of talent. The 1% of talent was the most important, but without hard work, one would not be able to achieve anything. However, Long Haochen had both. The lightsaber and the fire sword had turned completely white, pure white blades. According to the rules of the competition, before the battle began, the distance between the two parties was 30 meters. In other words, during the process of the 30-meter charge, Long Haochen used 4 skills in a row. Although these 4 skills did not consume a lot of spiritual energy, they added up to more than 150 points. Of course, this was for a normal knight. The key was the speed at which he used his skills and the connection between them. The Punishment Knight and the Guardian Knight's skills were used interchangeably without any delay. Not only were the other 8 contestants focused on the battle, but even the big shots of the Knights Templars on the rostrum were staring at the battle without blinking. Just when Long Haochen was about 3 meters away from Yang Wenjiao made his move. He took a big step forward with his left foot, and his whole body moved forward with this step. The greatsword in his left hand was still by his side, but the greatsword in his right hand was raised diagonally upward. As soon as he made his move, Yang Wenjiao displayed his powerful strength. He did not use any skills, but the blade of his sword spewed out a golden light that was 2 feet long, as if the greatsword had suddenly increased in length. Because the movement was upward, the sword ray swept across the ground first, leaving a long gully in its wake. Stop! Long Haochen, who was in the midst of charging forward, suddenly stopped. It was as if his entire body had collided with a wall. His right foot landed heavily on the ground, and he fell to the side as if he had lost his balance. Meanwhile, the flaming sword in his left hand struck the ground fiercely, propelling his body to complete a horizontal roll in the air. It was just enough to avoid Yang Wenjiao's attack. The lightsaber stabbed forward, and the lunging stab skill went straight for Yang Wenjiao's chest with an unstoppable momentum. That's right, against an opponent whose spiritual energy was far superior to his, Long Haochen did not choose to fight head-on, but chose to use a skill. Good! Yang Wenjiao shouted. He did not think that Long Haochen could use such a difficult skill to attack him. He also raised the sword in his left hand, and at the same time, kicked his right foot with his left foot, unexpectedly ending the sliding step prematurely. His whole body instantly stopped even more abruptly than Long Haochen's. Ding! Long Haochen's lightsaber collided with the greatsword in Yang Wenjiao's left hand in the air, but Yang Wenjiao was surprised to find that Long Haochen's sword actually did not have much strength behind it. After being raised by the greatsword in his left hand, Long Haochen's whole body borrowed the momentum, and his body spun at an even faster speed. Both swords were raised at the same time, and he slashed at Yang Wenjiao. Yang Wenjiao did not move, nor did he try to dodge. The great sword in his hands made a small vibrating motion in the air. A series of clanging sounds exploded in the air. In the short span of a breath, who knew how many times Long Haochen's attack had collided with Yang Wenjiao's? Long Haochen's 2 swords were like a huge meat grinder. More importantly, he actually kept borrowing momentum during the collision, using Yang Wenjiao's defense to increase the speed of his own spin. Thus, the frequency of his attacks increased. Gradually, only a layer of golden light could be seen spreading from Long Haochen's body as he spun, and his figure could no longer be seen clearly. Yang Wenjiao's face also revealed a trace of surprise. The frequency of vibration on both swords could only continuously increase along with Long Haochen's attack. However, Long Haochen's attacks became more and more fierce, as if there was no end to them. In this short period of time, he did not know how many swords he had blocked. He was tricked. This was Yang Wenjiao's first reaction. He immediately understood that Long Haochen was going all out with this attack from the start, and there was no probing at all. For the sake of safety, he actually let Yi Shiwen take the initiative. On the rostrum, the Saint Knight muttered, "This is the battle-killing revolving sword. It really is his inheritance. Unfortunately, his battle-killing revolving sword is still far from being practiced to perfection. Without enough spiritual power, he can't display this self-created punishment-killing skill." Puff! Yang Wenjiao's left hand suddenly stabbed the sword into the ground, and his right wrist instantly shook. A layer of golden sword light burst out from his right hand, forcibly blocking Long Haochen's attack. At the same time, a circle of intense golden light burst out from the ground and fiercely struck Long Haochen's battle-killing revolving sword. It was the Rising Sky Matrix. The Rising Sky Matrix could not shake off Long Haochen. With the use of the battle-killing revolving sword, Long Haochen's battle intent that had been raised to the extreme continued to erupt, and his condition had reached its peak. Under the rapid rotation, the two swords formed a terrifying vortex around his body with a strong spiritual energy. Even if Yang Wenjiao had liquid spiritual energy, a mere Rising Sky Matrix could not stop Long Haochen. However, liquid spiritual energy was liquid spiritual energy, and Long Haochen's rapid rotation inevitably slowed down. Immediately afterward, the sword in Yang Wenjiao's left hand that was stabbed into the ground instantly rose up. The liquid spiritual energy around his body rapidly vibrated at a strange frequency and unexpectedly burst out with a long roar like that of a dragon. Immediately afterward, in the eyes of the spectators, Yang Wenjiao turned into a golden dragon and soared into the sky, colliding with Long Haochen's battle-killing revolving sword. Rising Dragon Strike, the Punishment Knight's most powerful rank 5 attack skill. In the face of the pressure brought by the battle-killing revolving sword, Yang Wenjiao had to use a powerful skill to reverse the situation. Boom! The golden dragon turned into a ball of golden light and flew out. It was Yang Wenjiao. When his feet landed, he took 3 steps back before he could stabilize his body. On the other side, Long Haochen's rapidly rotating body suddenly stopped. He flipped a few times in the air, and when he landed, he staggered 7 or 8 steps before he could stabilize himself. From the changes in the aura of the two, it was obvious that Long Haochen had consumed more energy. Although his battle-killing revolving sword was strong, it also consumed a lot of energy. Moreover, Yang Wenjiao's liquid spiritual energy was tyrannical. However, what surprised Yang Wenjiao was that just as his feet stabilized, Long Haochen swung his 2 swords on both sides of his body, and a golden mist instantly rose. Ready! What a strong will to fight! Even Yang Wenjiao felt the blood in his body churn. He naturally understood that Long Haochen's situation was not better than his, but in this situation, Long Haochen still chose to immediately use his skill. Over the past few days, Long Haochen had been relying on accumulating power to improve his cultivation and to comprehend the mystery of liquid spiritual power. As he continued to deepen his understanding of this skill, his speed of accumulating power had also increased significantly. Sudden attack. Yang Wenjiao's choice was the same as that of Han Yu that day. When he saw ready, he immediately launched a sudden attack without hesitation. His movements were faster and more decisive than Han Yu's. His 2 swords dragged by his side, and his whole body was covered in a thick golden light as he rushed towards Long Haochen. As his body rushed forward, the golden light became stronger and stronger. The rich liquid spiritual energy made the golden light around his body a bit more viscous. Long Haochen stood there quietly without moving. Looking at Yang Wenjiao's ferocious charge, his expression did not change at all. Sudden stab. Yang Wenjiao chose a simple skill. His goal was only to first interrupt Long Haochen's ready. From the previous battle-killing revolving sword, he could tell that Long Haochen must have a lot of secret skills on him. Even Yang Wenjiao was jealous of a skill like battle-killing revolving sword. This was not an ability recorded in the Temple League. It must be a self-created skill of a powerful knight. Dang! Raising his fire sword, Divine Guard, Long Houchen only made his move when the sudden stab was only half a foot away from him. As the sword in his left hand blocked the opponent's attack, the light sword in his right hand slashed out. All the spectators could clearly see that when Long Houchen swung the lightsaber in his right hand, a flash of golden light abruptly intensified in just a second. Finally, it transformed into a dazzling golden ball of light. It was the glorious sun slash. Accumulating power was not completely useless. Even if the accumulating time was very short, there would still be a certain increase in spiritual power. Long Houchen's glorious sun slash actually gave people a feeling of moderation. The glaring sunlight also seemed to have softened a lot. The golden color at the core of the glorious sun slash even showed signs of solidifying. Bang! Yang Wenjiao raised the sword in his left hand and used a simple pure white blade to block Long Houchen's glorious sun slash. However, his heart was filled with shock, because from this glorious sun slash, he could clearly see that Long Houchen had already touched the threshold of liquid spiritual energy. In fact, from the start of the battle, Yang Wenjiao had not used his full strength. He wanted to see what kind of cultivation this young man, who looked much younger than him, had achieved after defeating Han Yu. In particular, Long Houchen had changed from a guardian knight to a punishment knight, which greatly aroused his interest. He had absolute confidence that he could defeat Long Houchen, so his attacks were not fierce and were mainly probing. However, the more he probed, the more shocked he became. He had used his full strength in that strike just now. Otherwise, even with his cultivation, the ordinary pure white blade wouldn't have been able to win against the glorious sun slash. Pooh! Long Houchen took a step back, but Yang Wenjiao didn't move. However, the second ball of intense sunlight had already lit up. It was still glorious sun slash. At this moment, Long Houchen, who had a rather delicate figure, actually revealed a heroic expression on his face. Following closely behind the light sword, he activated the Divine Guard and the fire sword slashed out with a glorious sun slash. What a fast combination! It must be known that glorious sun slash was the most tyrannical rank 4 skill. Boom! This time, Yang Wenjiao didn't dare to be careless. He raised both his swords and blocked Long Houchen's attack. But this time, Long Houchen didn't retreat. His feet seemed slow, but there was a special rhythm to it. Long Houchen's light sword and fire sword danced. Under the shocked gazes of the surrounding spectators, Long Houchen's figure moved continuously and sent 18 glorious sun slashes at Yang Wenjiao. Every attack was powerful and heavy. More importantly, with every attack, Long Houchen's aura would increase. That powerful aura, which was filled with the confidence of victory, actually suppressed Yang Wenjiao to the point where he felt like he couldn't use his full strength. But Yang Wenjiao was indeed powerful. He stood in place, the swords in his hands flying, and blocked Long Houchen's 18 glorious sun slashes without taking a step back. Awesome! Long Houchen shouted. As he shouted, his body rapidly retreated. This was because when Yang Wenjiao blocked his last attack, he used Divine Block. The golden light of Light's vengeance was transferred to his two-handed swords, and he crossed them in front of the retreating Long Houchen. Long Houchen, who was retreating, suddenly stopped and crossed his swords in front of him, Divine Block. Amidst the roar, Long Houchen's feet on the ground moved 3 feet back, and only then did he completely dispel his opponent's attack. He instantly raised the light sword in his right hand, and a strong holy aura appeared along with the white light. Sacred Sword. The Sacred Sword skill itself needed to be charged. At least, with Long Houchen's current cultivation, he needed to prepare for several seconds before he could use this skill. This time, he used Divine Block to block his opponent's attack, and then directly converted Light's Vengeance into a Sacred Sword skill. Just from this instantaneous transformation, one could see how astonishing his inheritance was. This technique was also not recorded in Knights Templars. Good! Yang Wenjiao suddenly smiled. He did not take advantage of the fact that Long Houchen could only block with one sword to attack. Instead, he stretched out his arms, and the same holy aura was released from his body. The difference was that both of his broadswords were shining with a dazzling holy light. Obviously, he wanted to use dual sacred swords to fight against Long Houchen's single sacred sword. Humph! Long Houchen snorted coldly, completely ignoring Yang Wenjiao. He slowly raised his head and looked at the light sword that was shining with holy light. A strange red flashed in his eyes. With his perception, how could he not feel that Yang Wenjiao was not fighting with all his strength? For Long Houchen, this was even more unacceptable than defeat. On the rostrum, the first person to notice that something was wrong was Holy Knight Long Han Qiu. He suddenly stood up and said with a surprised expression, "This little guy really dares to use everything. He even knows the rank 7 Temple Knight's sacrifice skill. Is Xingyu crazy? Is he not afraid of spoiling things through excessive enthusiasm?" From Long Houchen's performance these days, he had clearly guessed where his inheritance came from. Sacrifice, protection, and punishment were all skills that a knight could learn. The rank 7 Temple Knight's secret technique. Of course, Han Qiu did not know that Long Houchen's innate internal spiritual energy was 97. Why would Long Xingwu harm his son? After careful consideration, he cast a seal on the inheritance ring. Yang Wenjiao was a real rank 5 knight. Naturally, it was much easier for him to use the holy sword than Long Houchen. He was the closest to Long Houchen. When Han Qiu exclaimed on the rostrum, he also noticed that something was wrong with Long Houchen. What is he doing? Yang Wenjiao's heart skipped a beat. He did not dare to wait any longer. He could faintly feel the presence of danger. Suddenly, Yang Wenjiao's speed increased by 30%. When he sensed danger, he didn't hesitate to use his full strength. He made a prompt decision. Dual swords, holy radiance cross/. In the process of the attack, Yang Wenjiao swung both swords at the same time. The cross/ from the holy sword was holy radiance cross/. This could be considered a combination skill. Long Houchen had once used the holy sword to break through the rank 5 Knight Han Yu's defense. One could only imagine the power of the holy radiance cross/ from the dual swords. A milky white cross-shaped blade of light filled with an incomparable holy aura headed straight for Long Houchen. Wherever it passed, a faint fragrance wafted through the air. This was the power of a skill that was on the verge of rank 6. At this moment, a boundless golden red light filled with sorrow, despair, and sharpness erupted from Long Houchen's body. This golden red light was definitely not a fusion of light and fire. At this moment, Long Houchen was like a knight facing countless powerful enemies. His allies had all died, and he was alone and helpless. The conviction to die ignited the purest fighting spirit and blood in his body. The golden red light was filled with the element of madness. Fire sword horizontally blocked. Divine block. The sharp golden red light instantly turned the divine block into a hole. It was as if a golden red barrier had covered Long Houchen's body. One must know that the divine block was better at blocking physical attack. It was difficult to fully defend against energy attacks. However, right now, Shi Feng was able to do it. Boom! The golden red light shone even brighter. Long Houchen blocked the holy radiance cross/ without taking a step back. He only spat out a mouthful of blood. He took a step forward, and like a huge ball of golden light, he charged straight at Yang Wenjiao. The light sword in his right hand slashed downwards. It was the blood-colored holy sword. Yang Wenjiao did not expect his holy radiance cross/ to be neutralized just like that. At the same time, he recognized the skill that Long Houchen was using. Sacrifice? He could actually use sacrifice. He actually dared to use sacrifice. Was he not afraid of dying from exhaustion? Sacrifice was a skill that the knight could use to put his life on the line. Sacrifice himself to protect his comrades. sacrifice himself to die with the enemy. In order to use this skill, one must first be prepared to die. One must understand the sacrifice of the knight's 10 great rules in order to learn it. Once used, one's blood and spiritual energy would instantly fuse as one, exploding with strength that far exceeded one's original cultivation. However, the duration was very short. If one was not careful, one's blood would dry up and he would die. At the very least, one's vitality would be greatly damaged. From Yang Wenjiao's point of view, this was just a competition. Long Haochen actually used sacrifice. Why? For the knight's glory. When Long Haochen felt that Yang Wenjiao was not using his full strength, the stubbornness in his heart, the desire for victory, and the humiliation of being looked down upon made him use this skill that he had never comprehended before. Kering. Yang Wenjiao also used Divine Block to block the blood-colored holy sword, but his body was forced to retreat 5 steps. He could clearly feel that within the blood-colored holy sword there was a kind of terrifying will that he could not understand. In terms of spiritual energy, even after using sacrifice, Long Haochen was at most on par with him. However, this terrifying will made Yang Wenjiao feel as if his cultivation was being suppressed. At this moment, a milky white light shone on Long Haochen's chest. Immediately after, a red light flashed in his eyes, and the same red light appeared on Yang Wenjiao's body. The knight's common skill lock. A rank 6 skill. Saint Spiritual Stove. On the platform, Han Qiu sucked in a breath of cold air. With a glance, he could see that Long Haochen used the Saint Spiritual Stove to activate lock under the state of sacrifice. Compared to ready, it was also a support skill, but lock was an extremely practical ability. Any knight who cultivated to the Radiance Knight realm could learn it. Once the opponent was locked, all of the knight's attack skills would automatically chase after the target. Even if it was a straight-line skill like charge or assault, it would cause a tracking effect due to lock. Glittering with a golden-red radiance, Long Haochen soared into the air at the same time he used lock. He brandished his 2 swords and circled his body to attack Yang Wenjiao. Holy Sword version of battle-killing revolving sword, and under the effect of sacrifice. With Long Haochen's current cultivation, he could only use sacrifice for 10 seconds. Therefore, he didn't waste any time and immediately used his strongest attack. A dragon roar sounded almost at the same time. Facing the sacrifice skill, how could Yang Wenjiao be careless? He used Rising Dragon Strike again. He could see that the battle-killing revolving sword was at its weakest at the beginning, and as time passed, its power would continuously increase. From Divine Block to Rising Dragon Strike, Yang Wenjiao's skill switching speed was also unparalleled. Boom! The same skill, but the result was completely different. The moment the dragon roar from Rising Dragon Strike clashed with the sacrificial version of battle-killing Circular Slash, Rising Dragon Strike was forcefully smashed back to the ground. On top of that, battle-killing Circular Slash was the first to descend after him. So strong. Yang Wenjiao was shocked. Facing an opponent whose cultivation was lower or equal to his, he had never been forced to this extent. Chapter 28. In the state of sacrifice, Long Haochen had entered a strange state where he was unafraid of death. His own potential had been developed to a great extent. In fact, he had the medicine that Lin Xian had given him. He could have used the medicine to improve his cultivation. However, his opponent did not even summon his mount for the sake of fairness. How could Long Haochen let him use medicine to fight against his opponent? Under the immense pressure from Yang Wenjiao, his understanding of sacrifice burst forth. At this moment, the various punishment knight skills that he had practiced for the past 5 years seemed to have been fully integrated. Yang Wenjiao sighed inwardly. Specks of blue light floated out from his chest. Every speck of blue light seemed to contain a sparkling luster, as if blue gems were flying out of them. They collided with Long Haochen, who was descending from the sky. Spiritual Stove. He was confident that he could take on Long Haochen's attack. However, if he were to take it head-on, he would definitely be injured. Yang Wenjiao's goal was not just to pass this round. He wanted to be first in the night trial and first in the monster hunter's trial. How could he allow himself to be injured at this time? Boom, 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 a series of explosions rang out from Long Haochen's spiraling body. Every time a blue crystal light flew out and collided with his body, there would be a strong explosion. Every explosion would cause the golden red light on Long Haochen's body to diminish by half, and his spinning speed would decrease accordingly. When Long Haochen was able to attack Yang Wenjiao at close range, he could no longer maintain his killing spiral sword. Boom! The two of them retreated at the same time. Yang Wenjiao retreated 30 feet and spat out a faint golden mist. His chest heaved up and down as he panted slightly. In the distance, Long Haochen stood there with his two swords on the ground. The red in his eyes gradually faded, and all his spiritual power dissipated. However, he still stood straight and stared at Yang Wenjiao. His face was pale as paper, and blood flowed from his mouth and nose. You forced me to use the spiritual stove of galaxy to block your attack. Respect. If we were the same age, I might not be able to defeat you. Yang Wenjiao gave Long Haochen a thumbs up. I look forward to our next battle after you have a mount. The match is over. Number 1 wins. The referee's slightly anxious voice rang out. Then, from the direction of the rostrum, a white light with specks of silver stars fell from the sky and instantly shone on Long Haochen. Holy Healing, the Tier 7 healing skill of the Guardian Knight. Specks of silver light seeped into Long Haochen's body under the illumination of the holy light, stabilizing his qi and blood, and healing his internal injuries. Haochen. At the same time that the referee announced the end of the match, the barrier around the training field also dispersed. Yihua immediately rushed into the training field and hugged Long Haochen, who was barely able to stand. Long Haochen spat out a mouthful of blood. Even though he was bathing in the holy healing spell, Long Haochen still slowly fell into Yihua's arms and fainted. However, no one noticed that on his chest, there was a faint layer of white light gently fluctuating. In the corner, Han Yu stood there and didn't move for a long time. In the end, Long Haochen still lost to Yang Wenjiao. However, even if he lost this match, it was still a glorious defeat. Spiritual stove, both of them actually had a spiritual stove. Just this point alone made Han Yu feel as if his heart had been hit by a sledgehammer, making it hard for him to breathe. What skill did Long Haochen use? He knew about sacrifice, but he didn't know about that skill that was like a sword wheel. Let me ask, if it was me, under the situation where I didn't use the mount's ability, would I be able to win against the skill that Long Haochen used under the state of sacrifice? Han Yu didn't want to think about the answer, because he was already very clear what the answer was. Losing to him wasn't unjust. More importantly, he was only 14 years old. Most of the time, personality could determine success or failure. If it was someone else, perhaps they would be depressed because of the blow in front of them, but Han Yu's nature of becoming braver the more frustrated he was. At this time, he had some enlightenment. He suddenly understood some of his grandfather's painstaking efforts. Yes, a young man who was only 14 years old could already compete with a rank 5 knight. What would be the limit of his future achievements? I'm almost 8 years older than him. The gap of age is already insurmountable. It's going to be very difficult to catch up to him. At the same time, with such great potential, his future improvement and experience can be imagined. Following by his side, not only can I become a part of the monster hunters, I can also accompany him to experience many things. Perhaps this really is the best choice for me. The original unwillingness and pain in his eyes gradually disappeared, replaced by determination. Since he has already set his goal, he will not let himself deviate from the track. The existence of a super genius like Long Haochen is in itself a constant spur to him. Kai stood quietly on the street. She came here early in the morning, feeling the increasingly warm sunlight shining on her body. Her eyes were full of gentleness. Every time she thought of the conversation with Long Houchen yesterday, she couldn't help but feel her heart beating faster. She is an assassin, originally. This kind of emotion should not appear on her. But she can't help but think of everything about him. His hands are slender, strong, and his palms are wide. Every time he holds her, his palms are warm, embracing her palm. She really likes that feeling of being protected. Since young, she has had this kind of experience for the first time. She will never forget, when the two of them first met, the appearance of the 9-year-old Long Houchen, using his slender body to cover her. At that time, he was so weak, but a person's courage and kindness will always have nothing to do with strength. Even if it was an adult, would he be willing to protect her like this at that time? When she gave away the forget-me-not ring, which is very important to her, little Kai was impulsive, but she believed in her intuition. In fact, at that time, she did not think that one day she would meet Long Houchen again, but she still gave away the ring without hesitation. Forget-me-not. She did not know whether it was for herself or for him to understand. Since young, she has always lived in a cold world. Warmth is an emotion for her, and she has only felt this kind of emotion from Long Houchen. Being held by him every day, walking on this short road, is the happiest experience of Kai-er's life. The anticipation in her heart is even stronger than his. Compared to this happiness, it seems that the monster hunter's tryouts are nothing. Thinking of the tryouts, Kai-er's delicate face hidden under the veil can't help but reveal a trace of a smile. He said that he will always hold my hand and protect me like that. At the finals, I will help him achieve this. Blind people who have lost their sight are undoubtedly in pain, but the inner world of blind people is much richer than that of normal people. Their imagination is also far beyond that of normal people. Kai-er quietly recalled the dribs and drabs between her and him, immersed in this happiness and waiting for his arrival to wake her up, and then let him hold her hand and walk on the road bathed in warmth and comfort. Time gradually passed, and she waited there quietly like a sculpture. The warmth of the morning sun gradually turned into the warmth of noon. She was not anxious at all, just waiting quietly. He did not come, he still did not come. It was not until the warmth was gone and a slightly cold wind blew on her face that Kai-er shivered. How long has it been? This should be a cool breeze in the evening. It has been a while since she came to Sacred City, and her judgment in this regard is not wrong. He did not come? Why did he not come? Could it be that he regretted it? A layer of distressing mist gradually filled Kai-er's eyes. He will come, he will definitely come. Kai-er's hand holding the green bamboo stick gradually tightened, and she could clearly see the joints gradually turning white. The afterglow of the setting sun gradually dissipated, and the night quietly permeated the streets and alleys of Sacred City. The temperature became even colder, but it was not as cold as the chill in Kai-er's heart. Her petite body looked so lonely and silent, as if her whole body had been covered by the shadows. Why did you not come? A drop of tear quietly slipped down Kai-er's face. He would not come, and it was already late at night. Slowly turning around, Kai-er somewhat staggered in the direction of the hotel she was staying at. Suddenly, her footsteps stopped, and her eyes slightly widened. He would participate in the competition today. Could it be because he had an accident in the competition? At the thought of this, all the chill in Kai-er's heart turned into anxiety. She did not know why, but she would rather he renege on his promise yesterday than to have any accident happen to him. Something must have happened. In the next moment, Kai-er confirmed her judgment. Thinking back on all the things that had happened between her and Long Houchen, she suddenly felt a trace of shame in her heart. She was too worried, and she had been too stubborn. With his personality, not to mention whether he would renege on his promise, even if he did, would he avoid seeing her? No, definitely not. She tapped her bamboo cane on the ground, and her stumbling disappeared. Soon, she disappeared into the boundless night. An hour later, Kai sat quietly on the chair in the room, still holding the green bamboo stick in her hand, but the chill emanating from her body made the temperature of the room drop at least 10 degrees. 3 meters in front of her, a person covered in black said in a low voice, "That's it. Long Houchen has been treated by the holy healing spell of the Knights Templars, so his life should not be in danger, but it is very likely that his vitality will be damaged. It is still unknown whether he can participate in the finals. You can leave." Kai-er's cold voice seemed to freeze the air. "Yes, your subordinate will leave." The man in black quickly walked out of the room. After he left, he felt as if his blood was about to freeze because of the murderous aura released from Kai. Seriously injured and unconscious, he is actually seriously injured and unconscious. The temperature in the room dropped again, and the green bamboo stick in Kai-er's hand sank into the hard stone floor bit by bit. Yang Wen-zhao. A dark halo flickered slightly on Kai-er's chest. In the next moment, she began to slowly disappear from the chair. To be precise, it was the afterimage that she left on the chair gradually dissipating. Yang Wen-zhao had just finished dinner and defeated Long Houchen. He had successfully entered the top 5 in the preliminaries, and was one step closer to his goal. However, the battle today made him feel a sense of urgency. This was something that hadn't happened for many years. How old was he? After the competition, Yang Wen-zhao purposely went to ask around, but he did not get any answers. Although his teacher did not come with him for various reasons, his position in the Knights Templars was not low. "He is at least 4 or 5 years younger than me," Yang Wen-zhao muttered to himself. "I don't know if he is more talented, or if he is more hard-working than me. I'm afraid that within a few months, he will be able to break through to the 5th stage. And I am only at the 3rd stage of the 5th stage. If he continues to improve at this speed, I'm afraid that he will become my biggest competitor in the future." At this point, a faint smile appeared on Yang Wen-zhao's face. "That's good too. With such an opponent to spur me on, it will be more beneficial to my future improvement. After all, he is a member of the Knights Templars. I hope that his mount will not disappoint me." Today's battle with Long Houchen had given him a considerable amount of shock, especially when Long Houchen used the sacrifice skill at the end. Although he did not know what the consequences would be, the Long Houchen that used the skill gave him a feeling that it was difficult to resist. If not for the power of the spiritual stove, even if he could endure until the time of the sacrifice skill, he would certainly be injured. Saint Spiritual Stove? Compared to my Galaxy Spiritual Stove, there is still a big gap. The Galaxy Spiritual Stove was ranked 18th among the spiritual stoves that the Knights could fuse with, far surpassing the Saint Spiritual Stove. It could undergo 3 evolutions. At present, Yang Wen-zhao had already completed its first evolution. This was his biggest advantage. Is. Suddenly, 2 ice-cold words resounded in Yang Wen-zhao's room. What caused him to turn pale with fright was that this voice actually came from all directions, causing him to be unable to determine the source of the voice. Moreover, even with his rather strong perception, he actually didn't feel the slightest bit of an attack. The window lightly trembled. In the next moment, a slender figure was already quietly enlarging in front of Yang Wen-zhao. Yang Wen-zhao quickly retreated a step. With a flash of golden light in his hands, the 2 great swords were already grasped in his hands. An intense golden light erupted from his body, illuminating the room in a flash. In the face of danger, he did not panic. In the first instance, he made the calmest response. However, the shock in his heart did not lessen. If this person in front of him did not speak of her own accord, he would not have been able to detect her arrival. If she had launched a sneak attack, Yang Wen-zhao did not continue thinking. Instead, he completely concentrated on facing the crisis in front of him. "Assassin!" he shouted in a deep voice. At the same time, he carefully sized up the person in front of him. Wearing a long black dress, a black veil similarly covering her face. Her right hand grasped a green bamboo cane. Her delicate body seemed as if a gust of wind could blow her away. Her long purple hair quietly draped over her back. What made Yang Wenjiao most shocked was that her exposed eyes did not have the slightest bit of spirit. "You should not have injured him." Kai Er's ice-cold voice spat out each word, causing Yang Wenjiao's heart to palpitate. Demonic voice penetrates the brain? Yang Wenjiao immediately focused his mind. The golden light emitted from his body was like a substance. It vaguely condensed into a layer of armor that covered his entire body. On his chest, spots of starry blue halo were released. Facing this unknown girl who brought him a sense of danger, he had already given it his all. Puff! The green bamboo cane in Kai Er's hand stopped in place and instantly sank half a foot into the ground. Completely relying on his intuition, Yang Wenjiao instantly raised the greatsword in his right hand. Clang! A layer of golden light instantly shone. Divine defense, a black figure instantly slid to the side. Kai Er, who was originally standing there, had just started to disappear. Shadow doppelganger. Yang Wenjiao was shocked. Without hesitation, the great sword in his left hand was inserted into the ground. The rising sky formation instantly erupted. At the same time, dozens of starry blue light balls shot out from his chest. These starry blue light balls did not need his command. In an instant, they shrank and blasted in one direction. Kai Er appeared at Yang Wenjiao's side, using the divine dominating armor to block her first attack. Yang Wenjiao's reaction was also extremely fast, and the spiritual furnace of the starry sea erupted with a formidable might, enveloping her in a flash. However, before Yang Wenjiao could heave a sigh of relief, he saw an incredible scene. Kai Er's left hand remained close to her side. In her right hand there was a dark golden dagger. Streaks of afterimages instantly flashed. What Yang Wenjiao could see was that the Star Sea Spiritual Stove's Sea Spiritual Strike was actually destroyed one by one. Kai Er's speed was so fast that Yang Wenjiao could not see her at all. Every time the dagger in her right hand stabbed out, a light ball would be destroyed. The afterimages flickered like a tornado. In the next moment, all the starry blue light balls had disappeared. After all, Yang Wenjiao was a young talent who could defeat Long Haochen. He was also the punishment knight. At this time, he had already calmed down. A knight had an innate advantage when facing an assassin. This was because a knight's defense was very strong. His attack was not weak either. He also had many powerful skills that could have a certain restraining effect on an assassin. Although an assassin's attack was strong, their defense was their fatal weakness. As long as they were hit by a knight once or twice, they would very likely lose the ability to fight. Both swords vibrated at the same time. Both hands stabbed out at lightning speed. The two swords instantly erupted with sharp light attribute energy, transforming into countless golden sword shadows that enveloped Kai Er's body. Against an assassin's speed, area of effect attacks were obviously the most effective. Kai Er let out a cold snort, her delicate body slightly swaying in a strange rhythm. It seemed that she was simply swaying her body in a very small area, but those dazzling golden sword images just passed by her body, unable to hit her in the slightest. In Yang Wenjiao's eyes, the current Kai Er was like a ghost. His swords actually could not keep up with Kai Er's movements. This is an assassin's rank 5 secret technique, Ghost Flash? At this time, Yang Wenjiao could no longer care about attacking his opponent. A strong golden light suddenly burst out from his body. A dragon's roar resounded. Rising Dragon Strike. However, this time, his Rising Dragon Strike did not go up, but forward. Not only was the Rising Dragon Strike powerful, it was also a skill that combined both attack and defense. Borrowing the momentum of the lightning thrust, he used the Rising Dragon Strike. At the same time, the Star Sea Spiritual Furnace flashed again. Dozens of starry blue lights surged out, not aiming to attack the enemy, but to protect himself. What Yang Wenjiao wanted to do was to use the power of the rising dragon strike to rush out of the room. In this narrow area, his ability could not be fully displayed. As long as he rushed out, he could at least summon his mount companion. At that time, he would not be as passive as he was now. Kai Er's flickering figure suddenly froze, and she unexpectedly stopped dodging. Just like that, she stood in front of the ascending dragon's strike, her delicate body stretching slightly in a lazy posture. In that instant, a pitch-black shadow quietly appeared. That shadow didn't have any form, and looked just like a shadow released by Kai. Boom! The golden light dissipated and Yang Wenjiao's soaring figure was forcibly suppressed. His rising dragon strike, which had once caused Long Haochen to suffer a loss, was forcibly intercepted by the black silhouette's attack. Yang Wenjiao staggered back. He had never been suppressed so badly before. There were dozens of marks left on his two greatswords. Overlord Stab, another assassin's rank 5 skill. More importantly, Kai Er's body emitted a cold aura that was close to death. It made him feel as if he was being stabbed by a sharp blade at any time. That feeling of fear was not pleasant. However, Yang Wenjiao did not have time to think at this time. Fortunately, he had the Star Sea spiritual furnace to protect him, which allowed him to temporarily block Kai Er's attack. However, his tyrannical sea spiritual strike did not even have the chance to explode under the attack of Kai Er's dagger. Suddenly, Yang Wenjiao came to a realization. This was a special skill of the assassin. If he remembered correctly, it was called Sly Thrust. It was a skill that specialized in dealing with magic. However, the other party had used it against his spiritual furnace. This female assassin was clearly not very old, but the sense of danger she brought to him was so intense. It would be great if he could lock onto his target. That way, he would at least be able to deal with her ghost flash. While thinking about this, Yang Wenjiao's hands did not stay idle. Charge, lunge, glorious sun slash. These 3 skills were executed in one go. A layer of blue light spread out from the Star Sea spiritual furnace in his chest, turning into a layer of blue crystal light armor that covered his entire body. This was the Star Sea spiritual furnace's advanced ability after completing its first evolution, Star Spirit Armor. Yang Wenjiao understood that in this narrow space, if he continued like this, he would only become more and more passive. He would rather be hit a few times by the opponent in order to rush out first. Although this assassin was strong, as long as he could summon his mount, he would still have a chance. Although Kai could not see, her attacks were more tyrannical than the assassin's. Absolutely tyrannical. She actually had many ways to attack from other directions to achieve better results, but she remembered that the subordinate who told her about Yang Wenjiao's battle with Long Haochen said that Yang Wenjiao had always won against Long Haochen head-on. Head-on? Then head-on. Dang! A black light exploded, clashing head-on with the glorious sun slash. Her actions were no longer like that of an assassin, but more like that of a warrior. Yang Wenjiao only felt a suffocating sharp qi rush into his glorious sun slash. The dazzling light that was like the sun actually collapsed from the center. In terms of the total amount of spiritual energy, Yang Wenjiao could feel that his opponent was not much stronger than him. However, she had compressed her spiritual energy to an extremely terrifying level, completely merging it with her killing intent. Bang! Yang Wenjiao's body slammed into the wall, causing the entire hotel to shake. The next moment, thousands of white lights suddenly enlarged in front of his eyes. Block? He was unable to completely block it. In just a moment, Yang Wenjiao's mind was already blank. If Long Haochen was here, he would definitely recognize that the white light that shot out from Kai Er's chest was the power of the 1,000-strike spiritual stove. Pu, 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 pu. Pu, a series of sounds of sharp weapons piercing flesh resounded, countless blue lights splashed in the air. A cold voice echoed in Yang Wenjiao's ears. You hurt him with your spiritual stove, I will use my spiritual stove to break your spiritual stove. Pooh! All the lights instantly stopped. Kai was standing right in front of Yang Wenjiao, the blade of the dagger in her hand completely inserted into Yang Wenjiao's right chest. Facing each other, Yang Wenjiao only felt that the spiritual energy in his body had been completely sucked out. From the beginning to the end, Kai only used her right hand. Chapter 29. Yang Wenjiao's breathing became difficult because his right lung was pierced, and his throat became hoarse. He had never felt that death was so close to him before. She came for him. Long Haochen. She must have come for Long Haochen. Kai-er's last stab pierced through his right chest, but it also left him with a glimmer of hope. Because, if the stab had deviated a little bit from the center of his chest, it would have completely destroyed his spiritual stove of the galaxy C. If it had landed on his left chest, then it would have pierced through his heart. How could an assassin of her level stab miss? She was already being merciful. Feeling the murderous intent coming towards him, Yang Wenjiao smiled bitterly. The 6 major temples are one family. Yu Ker's dagger moved slightly, and Yang Wenjiao was in so much pain that he couldn't speak. You also know that the 6 major temples are one family? He was in the same temple as you, but didn't you injure him badly? An even more intense murderous intent burst out in an instant. Everyone was afraid of death, especially geniuses. Yang Wenjiao tried to defend himself. He used the sacrifice skill himself, not me. Moreover, that was only a competition. Kai said coldly, I don't care. Anyway, he was injured because of you. If it wasn't for the competition, you would have been a corpse by now. At this moment, her ears moved slightly. She stepped back and pulled out the dagger. Instantly, a stream of blood spurted out from Yang Wenjiao's chest. But Kai-er's speed was too fast, and her body wasn't stained at all. A black shadow flashed, and the next moment she disappeared into the night. Even the green bamboo stick disappeared along with her. Yang Wenjiao used his spiritual power to seal his wound. His eyes were dull, and his body leaned against the wall and slowly slid down. There wasn't much resentment in his heart, but more of a sense of helplessness. He couldn't help but think, is this an undeserved disaster? Perhaps only by riding on a mount would he have the strength to fight against the female assassin. Although the star spirit armor had blocked most of Kai-er's attack, the spiritual stove of 1,000 strikes had still left dozens of inch-deep wounds on his body. The blow that had pierced through his chest was even more serious. The large amount of blood loss had already made his consciousness a little fuzzy. As his consciousness gradually recovered, Long Haochen opened his eyes with some difficulty. His throat felt parched, as if he was in a furnace at this moment. He felt like he was being burned from head to toe. After a slight struggle, Long Haochen suddenly felt pain all over his body. With great difficulty, he looked within himself and was immediately shocked to discover that there was not a single drop of spiritual power left in his body. Only the saint's spiritual stove quietly floated within his chest, but its radiance had also dimmed a lot. What a tyrannical sacrifice! In just 10 seconds, he had actually weakened himself to this extent. Fortunately, there was no damage to the meridians within his body. He could still vaguely feel a gentle divine aura constantly nourishing his body. He didn't know that this was the effect of the holy healing technique. The powerful healing ability of the 7th step had protected his meridians in time, avoiding the most serious consequences. At this moment, although he was weak, his foundation had not been harmed. This was also due to his Son of Light physique. As a possessor of the purest holy light spiritual power, the consumption of the sacrifice technique was admittedly terrifying. However, because of the purity of his spiritual power, only his potential was consumed, and his blood essence was not truly burned. This was also the reason why Long Xingwu dared to place the sacrifice technique at the 5th step seal for him to comprehend. Originally, Long Xingwu had prepared this technique for him to use in times of crisis. However, He did not expect that because Long Houchen had already touched the edge of liquid spiritual power when he was fighting with Yang Wenjiao, he used that heroic spirit to break the seal of the rank 5 skill in the inheritance ring and used this skill with his rank 4 cultivation. If not for the holy healing technique, he was afraid that he would have to lie in bed for at least a month. Along with the recovery of his consciousness, the pain on Long Houchen's body gradually weakened. He had a vague feeling that within the saint's spiritual stove there seemed to be a trace of his own spiritual power. Although he didn't know how to draw out this spiritual power, he could feel that his cultivation had not completely disappeared. Recovery was only a matter of time. A trace of a smile appeared on the corner of Long Houchen's mouth. Although he had lost the battle with Yang Wenjiao, it was still carefree. Long Houchen believed that with this struggle, when his spiritual power recovered, he could really attack the 5th step. That Yang Wenjiao was really strong. He unexpectedly also had a spiritual stove, and it was an offensive-type spiritual stove. In a one-on-one battle, the Star Sea spiritual stove's effect was obviously much greater than his Saint spiritual stove. Dad was right, the punishment knight's best way to improve himself was to constantly fight, feeling and comprehending in battle. Before the finals of the Monster Hunters trials, I should be able to recover. According to the time, the 6 Great Temple trials will continue for at least 3 days, because there should still be many matches in the Warrior Temple. After the trials, there will be 3 days of rest. With these 6 days as a buffer, I should be able to recover my cultivation. If I can break through to the 5th step, that would be the best. Although Hao Yue isn't here, maybe I can still get a good ranking in the finals. This battle brought me a lot of benefits, but why do I feel like I've forgotten the most important thing? Suddenly, the smile on the corner of Long Houchen's mouth froze. His pair of eyes, which had clearly dimmed a lot, suddenly widened. His pale handsome face also revealed violent fluctuations of emotion in a flash. Long Houchen only felt as if his chest had received a heavy blow. He suddenly turned over and sat up. The violent movement caused his body to twitch with pain, but at this time, he couldn't care less. Damn it, I actually broke my promise. During the competition, I was too focused on the opponent. I actually broke my promise. Long Houchen struggled to stand up. At this time, his heart was completely filled with anxiety. An indescribable emotion made all his calmness disappear. In his mind, there was only the delicate and thin figure holding the green bamboo stick, gently touching the ground. She will definitely wait for me for a very, very long time. Damn it, Long Houchen fiercely slapped himself. Ignoring the constant convulsive pain in his body, he struggled to stand up, holding the wall and walking towards the door. I want to find her. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind. It was already late at night. When Long Houchen staggered out of the hotel, he suddenly felt a burst of cold air blowing on his face. The spiritual energy within his body was like a withered scorpion, unable to protect his body. Fortunately, cultivating his external spiritual energy made his body strong and sturdy. Although waves of weakness constantly attacked his perception, his heart's strong and persistent conviction supported him to walk out of the hotel step by step, moving towards the place where he and Kai agreed to meet every day. The consumption of sacrifice was too shocking. At this time, Long Houchen was completely in a state of limp hands and feet. Almost every step he took, his body would be a little more sweaty. His feet had no foundation, and he almost fell several times. Fortunately, the hotel where he lived was not far from the place where he and Kai agreed to meet. He staggered and walked slowly. At this time, Long Houchen was full of guilt. Although the competition was important, how could I break my promise to Kai? How disappointed she would be. Walking forward step by step, Long Houchen's vision was a little blurred. The cold of the night gradually attacked his body. Arrived. It wasn't a long road, but he walked for a full hour. Finally, he saw the place where he met Kai-Er every day. However, Kai-Er was already nowhere to be seen, and the surroundings were empty and quiet. Plop! Long Houchen could no longer stand and fell to the ground. The world was spinning, and he seemed to see countless stars revolving in front of him. Kai-Er had already left. That's right. The night was already so deep, how could she not leave? A trace of bitterness appeared on Long Houchen's lip. He fell to the ground. His heart was filled with deep regret. If he had to choose again, he would definitely not risk his life against Yang Wenjiao. He was a little surprised to find that in his heart, he didn't know when, but sending Kai-Er back had become more important than raising his cultivation. I want to go to the hotel to find her and apologize to her. But will she forgive me? She couldn't see the way out and left in disappointment. I'm the one who caused her so much pain. Will she forgive me? No, I can't go and find her. It's already so late at night. She must have fallen asleep from the tiredness of waiting. How can I disturb her? She must have waited for me for a very, very long time. Since that's the case, then I'll wait here. I must wait longer than she has, then I can ask for her forgiveness. Thinking of this, Long Houchen's breathing gradually became louder. A strong sense of dizziness filled his brain. He had never felt so weak before. This feeling was not pleasant. He could faint at any time. No, I can't faint. I must wait for her to come. This is the path she must pass by every day. As he thought, Long Houchen supported his body and slowly stood up. Standing up, at least it allowed him to focus his mind. He was afraid that if he fell there, it wouldn't be long before he passed out or fell asleep. As time passed, Long Houchen was still in a state of dizziness. Every time his body couldn't support it, he would immediately fall there. This fall naturally woke him up temporarily. Then he would force himself to get up, and so on. Kai-Er stood in a daze in Long Houchen's room. She was somewhat at a loss. He wasn't here? Where did he go? After severely injuring Yang Wenjiao, Kai-Er found her way here. Although she couldn't see, her other 5 senses were exceptionally sharp. As soon as she entered the room, she realized that Long Houchen wasn't here. His scent still lingered in the air, and there was even some residual warmth in the bedding. This proved that he was indeed sleeping here. However, it was so late, where could he go? With a flicker of her figure, Kai-Er flew out of the window like a wisp of smoke, reappearing on the street. Lightly tapping the ground with her bamboo cane, she slowly walked towards the hotel she was staying at. At this moment, her heart was filled with worry. After failing to find Long Houchen, she searched every room, including the place where Lin Xin and Yi Hua stayed. Every time she went to a room, she would quietly feel the change of scent, looking for the scent that belonged to him. However, all her efforts were in vain. He wasn't here. Other than his own room, there was no scent of him in the entire hotel. Could it be that something happened to him? The sound of the green bamboo cane in Kai-Er's hand tapping the ground was clearly louder. Her delicate face was covered with a layer of frost. If something really happened to him, no matter who it was, I will definitely not let them go. After returning to her room, she sat cross-legged on the bed. However, Kai-Er's heart couldn't calm down. Logically speaking, this was the headquarters of the Temple League. As a contestant of the Monster Hunter's trial, the possibility of something happening to him was extremely low. Previously, when she attacked Yang Wenjiao, didn't the experts of the Alliance come to her rescue in a short time? But where could he go? For a whole hour, Kai-Er couldn't enter a meditative state. I have to find him. Getting off the bed again, Kai-Er grabbed her green bamboo cane and went out of the hotel again. However, because of the anxiety in her heart, she forgot to put on her veil in the darkness of the night. The night was as cold as water. As the night wind blew gently, Kai-Er became a little more clear-headed. As the saying goes, being concerned makes one confused. After calming down a little, she kept thinking about where Long Houchen might have gone. As long as he wasn't kidnapped, where would he go? Could it be? Suddenly, she thought of something. Could he have gone there? But, it's so late, is it possible? Whether he would go there or not, that place is at least a target. Normally, she and Long Houchen would be able to walk for an hour. But as they leaped, it only took a dozen breaths of time to cover the distance. The tip of Kai Er's nose twitched slightly. It's his smell. It's his smell. He's really here. Tapping the green bamboo cane on the ground, Kai Er walked forward quickly. Following the familiar refreshing scent, he walked over. It was difficult for Long Houchen to maintain his consciousness. The repeated falls made him even weaker. At this time, he couldn't even see the scenery in front of him clearly. But he still stood there with his teeth clenched. His body was like a roly-poly toy that kept swaying. Tuck, tuck, tuck. Tuck, tuck, tuck. The familiar sound made him a little more clear-headed. Is it her? Or am I hallucinating? Long Houchen. Kai Er's anxious voice sounded. Then, a slender green bamboo cane was already on Long Houchen's body. Long Houchen couldn't stand steadily. He immediately fell to the ground with a thud. But this fall also made him a little more clear-headed. Her black dress was slightly messy. Her long purple hair cascaded down like a waterfall and draped over his face. A faint, somewhat cold fragrance wafted over. He was shocked to see a face filled with anxiety. Her slightly pale skin and lifeless eyes couldn't hide her absolute beauty in the slightest. It's her, it's her. In his own memory, this was the first time he saw Kai Er's face. Her extremely exquisite facial features were the complete opposite of her cold temperament. Her jade-like skin was slightly pale, but it was as delicate as a freshly peeled lychee. She had snow-white dimples on her face, and her eyebrows were dark green. Her elegant and refined face was almost instantly imprinted in Long Houchen's mind. How are you? Feeling Long Houchen fall, Kai Er was a little anxious. She hurriedly squatted down and touched him with both hands. His clothes were faintly damp. It was obvious that he had been soaked in the night dew. His body was still trembling slightly and his breathing was extremely unstable. Kai Er, I'm sorry. Seeing Kai Er, Long Houchen's heart was filled with joy. His consciousness was hazy and he couldn't think why Kai Er would appear at this time. But he couldn't suppress the excitement in his heart. Holding her pair of soft little hands, he said unevenly, I didn't mean to break our promise. Will you forgive me? Being held by him, Kai Er's heart suddenly shook. Because she could clearly feel how cold his hands were. It was completely different from his usual warmth. She hurriedly grabbed his wrist, and in that instant, Kai Er could already feel the weakness of his body. Moreover, with the invasion of the night dew, his weak body was actually on the verge of collapse. I forgive you. Kai Er bent down and carefully hugged his upper body. Her right hand was placed on his back. Gentle spiritual energy slowly flowed into Long Houchen's body, helping him to expel the cold in his body. If she didn't expel the cold in time, it was very likely that it would leave him in pain. How could she not forgive him? When she found him here, she had already guessed what he was thinking. He was so weak, but he was still thinking about his promise with her. No matter how much dissatisfaction she had in her heart, at this moment, it was completely gone. Moreover, he didn't mean to stand her up. Kai Er's spiritual energy was very warm. Long Houchen was really too weak at this time. His eyelids were very, very heavy. Before he fell into a deep sleep, he muttered something. After a while, Long Houchen had already returned to his room. Kai Er carefully tucked him in and sat on the side of the bed, quietly holding his hand. At this moment, under the care of Kai Er's spiritual energy, Long Houchen's palm had become a little warm again and was no longer as cold as before. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have doubted you. Kai Er's elegant face revealed a hint of gentleness. She carefully raised her hand and gently stroked Long Houchen's face. She touched his high nose bridge, delicate skin, and lips that were just thick and thin. Kai Er's pale face gradually blushed. A dark golden light flashed and a dagger quietly appeared in her hand. Her soft and tender fingers were like the most dexterous artist. The dagger moved lightly and carved a small line of words on the side of Long Houchen's bed. Then, she covered his palm over it. Feeling somewhat reluctant to part with him, Kai stroked his cheeks once more. Only then did she leave with a blushing face. At this moment, the words Long Houchen muttered before he fainted were still echoing in her heart. He said, "Kai you're so beautiful." Alliance Executive Office. Bang. The leader of the Knights Templars' Holy Knight, stationed in the Temple League, Han Q, whose position was second only to another rank 9 Almighty, was standing in front of a wide table with a frosty expression. The loud bang just now was caused by his palm slamming on the table. Ing Suifeng, if you don't give me an explanation today, don't blame us, the Knights Templars, for turning against you. Han Q's chest was burning with anger. How could he not be angry? It wasn't just him. At this moment, the higher-ups of the Knights Templars stationed in the Temple League were all enraged. Even the rank 9 Almighty, who was usually in seclusion, was alarmed. This year's Knights Templars had the highest chance of getting first place in the preliminary round. The punishment Knight Yang Wenjiao, who possessed a spiritual stove, was actually heavily injured in his own residence. And without a doubt, the person who injured him was from the Assassin Temple. Whether it was the Assassin Temple's signature skills or the 1,000 spiritual stove, they were all the most prominent symbols of the Assassin Temple. As soon as the sky brightened, Han Q had already come to denounce them. The core representatives of the 6 temples were all stationed in the Alliance Executive Office. Every 10 years, a group of committee members would be elected to represent each temple. They were in charge of the various affairs of the Knights Templars. Among them, there were 36 Presidium members, 6 from each temple. Therefore, although the Knights Templars was the head of the 6 temples in name, they didn't occupy a completely dominant position in the alliance. Han Q was one of the 6 Presidium members of the Knights Templars. He was also the leader of the Holy Knight, leading the 36 Holy Knights of the Knights Templars. He was also the Vice-Temple Master of the Knights Templars, who was in charge of the daily affairs. His position was respected, only below the 3 Knight of the Seal, and his seniority was so great that only one of the 3 Knight of the Seal could surpass him. Across from Han Qian, sitting upright behind the table, was a tall and skinny old man. He wore extremely ordinary black clothes, had grizzled short hair, and his appearance was also extremely ordinary. The only thing that was different from ordinary people was his eyes. They were a pair of eyes that were filled with silence, without any signs of life. If he was lying on the ground, people would definitely think that he was dead. Han Q had a respected position in the Knights Templars, and the person in front of him was not easy to deal with either. He was the Hall Master of the Assassin Temple's Chivalry Hall, and the Vice-Temple Master of the Assassin Temple's strongest 36 Chivalry Assassins, Ing Suifeng. At the same time, he was also the manager in charge of the Assassin Temple's daily affairs. The Assassin Temple was different from the Knights Templars. Most of the time, they were more of a headache for the demon's 72 demon god pillars. The 72 demon god pillars were also constantly replaced, and in this process, in the past 6,000 years, there had been 91 demon gods who died in the hands of the Assassin Temple. This glory was something that the other 5 sacred halls could not compare to. Even in the Alliance, no one knew how deep the Assassin Temple's trump card was. Only the Presidium of the Alliance knew how many grade 9 powerhouses the Assassin Temple had. Among the 6 great temple, the Assassin Temple had always been known as the existence that should not be provoked. Ing Suifeng was not affected by Han Q's rage. Since such a big thing happened, I will naturally give you an explanation. Han Qian had also calmed down a little at this time. He pulled over a chair and sat down, glaring at Ing Suifeng angrily. The 6 great temple had a close relationship with each other. Just like how the Magic Temple and the Warrior Temple had a good relationship, the Knights Templars and the Assassin Temple had the best relationship. The Knight was the Assassin's best talisman, and the Assassin was also the best attacker to support the Knight. One walked under the light while the other walked in the dark. The two complemented each other. Because of this, although the Knights Templars' upper echelons were furious, they did not immediately denounce Ing Suifeng. Instead, they reported the situation to the Assassin Temple last night, asking them to investigate the matter thoroughly. Early this morning, Han Qiu came to Ing Suifeng. Ing Suifeng's calm expression suddenly became a little strange. He said in a deep voice, "After last night's investigation, the matter has made some progress. It was indeed someone from the Assassin Temple who did it. For this, I apologize to the Knights Templars on behalf of the temple." As he spoke, he slowly stood up, slightly bowed and saluted Han Qiu. When Han Qiu heard this, his eyes immediately widened. He had also been a soldier all his life. Who knew how many times he had risked his life in battles with demons? A biting cold-bloody aura suddenly gushed out from his body. Suifeng, was it really someone from the Assassin Temple who did it? At this time, Han Qiu became calm. The way he addressed Ing Suifeng also changed, but his expression was even more unsightly. He and Ing Suifeng had a very good personal relationship. As early as 60 years ago, they were comrades who had fought side by side. They belonged to the same monster hunters. Until 30 years ago, when the two of them gradually became respected in their respective temple and gradually grew older, the monster hunters they were in disbanded. They began to manage the affairs of the temple separately. Now that Ing Suifeng actually admitted it, how could he not be anxious? This kind of internal conflict that escalated to the point of heavily injuring an important person in the opponent's temple was a big taboo in the alliance. If it was not handled well, it would cause internal disorder, which would affect the prestige and harmony of the Temple League. Ing Suifeng sighed softly and said, "Since it was done by us, how can I not admit it? Don't be anxious. Let me say it clearly. The matter is like this. This matter actually started because of your Knights Templars. Let me ask you, did that injured Yang Wenjiao injure another knight in yesterday's match? As a result, the other party was heavily injured." Hearing him say this, Han Qiu's thoughts immediately went astray. His expression changed greatly. "You're saying that Long Haochen hired assassins to kill people and paid off your assassin temple? If that was really the case, then it would be even more serious." There was no doubt that for the current Knights Templars, Yang Wenjiao was the most outstanding existence of the younger generation. But in Han Qiu's heart, he valued Long Haochen more. Although Long Haochen had lost in the competition yesterday, the talent and strength he had displayed had once again greatly shocked the Paladin chief. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that this child was a genius destroyer. Any genius would fall for the light he emitted. Moreover, he had arranged for his grandson, Han Yu, to be by Long Haochen's side as Long Haochen's retainer knight. If it really was Long Haochen who hired assassins to deal with Yang Wenjiao, then even he wouldn't be able to protect Long Haochen. With such a sinister nature, he would definitely be severely punished. Thinking of this, how could Han Qiu not turn pale with fright? This time, it was Ing Suifeng's turn to frown. Just who is this Long Haochen? How can he attract so much attention? Brother Han, you also seem to see him in a different light. Han Qiu snorted and said somewhat impatiently, "Don't worry about this for now. Hurry up and tell me, is it Long Haochen who hired assassins?" Long Haochen could be said to be the secret weapon of the Knights Templars. His age, in particular, had already been classified as a top secret. Although he had a good relationship with Ing Suifeng, for the sake of the Knights Templars' position in the 6 great temples, he wouldn't easily say it. Ing Suifeng shook his head and said, "Of course not. How could a fainted little guy hire assassins? It's like this. This Long Haochen has a good relationship with a member of our temple. After the member of our temple found out that he was injured, she flew into a rage and attacked Yang Wenjiao on her own. However, she was merciful and didn't really kill him. When Han Qiu heard that it wasn't Long Haochen who hired assassins, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief. But when he heard Ing Suifeng play it down, he was angry in his heart. You make it sound so easy. Do you know who Yang Wenjiao is? He's Elder Yang's grandson. Let's not talk about his importance to us Knights Templars. Just this identity alone, who will explain it to Elder Yang? Ing Suifeng sighed lightly and said, We've already found out about his identity in the process of investigating. However, since it's already happened, it must be resolved. After all, his spiritual stove isn't damaged. Although his injury isn't light, with your Knights Templars' healing ability, you should be able to heal him in a short period of time and won't leave any sequelae. If it really can't be done, we're willing to invite a priest of the Temple of the Priests with the rank of a cardinal or above to treat him. Then, we'll compensate your Knights Templars with some things. What do you think? Han Qiu was very smart. From Ing Suifeng's words, he already understood a lot of things. His expression changed as he said, So you're saying that you don't plan to hand over this assassin? You don't even plan to deal with him? Ing Suifeng nodded silently. Old Han, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about this. Han Qiu suddenly stood up in anger and slammed the table once again. Ing Suifeng, is this the explanation you're giving us? Do you know what kind of consequences this will cause? Ing Suifeng sighed and said, I know, but I have no choice. Not to mention me, even if it's Lord Hero, he still won't deal with this person. Han Qiu snorted coldly. He has a very strong background, doesn't he? But don't forget who he hurt. If we ask the Alliance to enforce the law, he won't be able to escape either. I advise you that it's better for our two temples to settle this privately. Ing Suifeng's eyes flashed with a trace of light. He sighed in his heart. This little girl really makes people worry. It seems that the Knights Templars won't let this go. That's true. If it was that girl who was seriously injured, we would have done the same. We're in the wrong. Brother Han, don't be angry. How about this? I know this matter is very difficult for you. I've asked Lord Hero. In order to show our sincerity in apologizing, we're willing to pass on a secret of our temple to your temple. However, there's a condition. Secret? Han Qiu was stunned. Ing Suifeng nodded and said, I believe that as long as you know this secret, you won't blame us for not dealing with this person. However, I need Brother Han to swear that after you know this secret, you'll only tell the few Lord God seals of your temple. The others must keep their mouths shut. If it weren't for the fact that our two sides have been friends for thousands of years, we wouldn't easily say this matter. Han Qiu's face froze. From Ing Suifeng's solemn tone, he could tell that this secret must be extremely important to the Assassin Temple. Okay, I promise you. Say it. Although he didn't really swear, this promise was more effective than any oath. Among the 6 great temple, the knight had the strictest self-restraint. Once there was a breach of trust, no matter who it was, they would no longer be able to stand. Ing Suifeng nodded silently and said, No matter which side of the 6 great temple it is, the most important factor to measure a professional's future development potential is the innate internal spiritual energy. Every temple has different explanations for different levels of talent. For example, you Knights Templars, an innate internal spiritual energy of 70 is called the Angel of Light Constitution, and an innate internal spiritual energy of 80 is called the Divine Protection Constitution, right? Han Qiu vaguely understood something and sucked in a breath of cold air. You're saying that the person who injured Yang Wenjiao has an innate internal spiritual energy of more than 70, and she's not old? He judged that the person was not old. From Yang Wenjiao's description of the fight with the opponent's cultivation base shouldn't be higher than rank 6. Ing Suifeng smiled bitterly and said, If it's just like that, with the relationship between our two temple, we'll have to give her some punishment. However, she's the only reincarnated body with an innate internal spiritual energy of more than 90 in our assassin temple's 3,000 years. It's equivalent to the Son of Light constitution of your Knights Templars. This girl's importance to our assassin temple is even more important than the throne of God to your Knights Templars. You can't have forgotten that 3,000 years ago, our assassin temple once had such a powerful person. That son of reincarnation used his powerful strength and talent to successfully kill 7 of the 72 demonic god pillars of the demons. Although he lost to the first demonic god in the end, he was seriously injured and couldn't get up for 30 years. That son of reincarnation's innate internal spiritual energy is 91. Our current one, because she inherited the weapon of that son of reincarnation, has an innate internal spiritual energy of 93 to 100, which is the legendary full value. It might even be another title. This newly born reincarnation saintess is an existence that will challenge the first demonic god pillar in the future. Compared to Yang Wenjiao in your temple, which one is more important? Han Q's eyes were wide open and he stuttered, innate internal spiritual energy, 100. You're telling the truth? This. Ing Suifeng smiled bitterly. Why would I lie to you about this? This is the biggest secret of our assassin temple. To the powerful people in our temple, such a saintess is definitely something that we're afraid of melting in our mouths and falling in our hands. Moreover, she started cultivating at the age of 5, and it's been 9 years since then. Her powerful talent is undoubtedly evident. Not only did she master the 1,000-strike spiritual stove, but she also really fused with the weapon of that son of reincarnation and opened the 6 paths of reincarnation, the number 1 spiritual stove that our assassin temple can absorb. You should know the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation. So, it's not that we don't want to give you an explanation, it's just that. Han Q looked at him in a daze. After a while, he smiled bitterly and said, I understand. Chapter 30. People from the Assassin Temple had killed a young talent from the Knights Templars participating in the Monster Hunters trial. This was something that could not be hidden. Furthermore, the nature of the matter was extremely vile. If they were not careful, it would affect the foundation of the 6 major Temple League. However, to everyone's surprise, the Knights Templars expressed their silence on the matter. They did not file a lawsuit with the Temple League. The Assassin Temple was even more low-key. Both parties acted as if nothing had happened. Even when the Alliance Committee members from the other major Temple Alliance asked about it, the Knights Templars and the Assassin Temple gave a unified statement, saying that it was a misunderstanding. Since the 2 major Temple Alliance had maintained a tacit understanding, the other temple naturally did not say anything. After all, they were not the ones who suffered losses. As for how they resolved the matter, they could not find out. This year's Monster Hunters trial had ended at this point. Most of the matches had ended. Only the final ranking was left. Long Haochen lost, and Yang Wenjiao was heavily injured. Both of them had lost the possibility of continuing to participate in the preliminary round. As Long Haochen's performance in the match against Yang Wenjiao was particularly outstanding, he was ranked 6th in the preliminary round for the Knights Templars. Yang Wenjiao, who had entered the top 5 but could not continue to participate, could only be ranked 5th. After stretching his body, Long Haochen gradually woke up from his sleep. The pain from last night still lingered, but compared to last night, it was much better. Rubbing his eyes, Long Haochen turned over and sat up. It had been a long time since he had slept so deeply. Kair. After regaining consciousness, the first thing that came to his mind was that beautiful face. Even though his mental state was extremely poor last night, that short look had already deeply imprinted that face into his mind. Was I dreaming last night? Long Haochen was not even sure if what happened last night had really happened. After all, he was too weak at the time. Huh! The bumpy feeling under his fingers caught his attention. When he touched it carefully, there seemed to be writing. He quickly sat up and looked at the words. Sure enough, a line of beautiful words was engraved on the bed. Rest well and don't worry about me. When the finals begin, you and I will meet again. Kyra. It wasn't a dream, haha, it wasn't a dream. Long Houchin was overjoyed when he saw the message. He clearly remembered that Kyra said she didn't blame him last night. We'll see each other in the finals? What did that mean? Last night, Kyra seemed to have used her spiritual power to heal me. Is she also a professional of the Sixth Great Temple? But she couldn't see it. Which temple does it belong to? Questions kept popping up in his mind, but how could he find the answers? After a while, Yihua and Lin Xian came to see him. The siblings had already lost the competition, so they could rest for the next 5 days and wait for the finals. Yihua checked Long Houchin's body again, especially his meridians and internal organs. After discovering that there weren't any sequelae from using the sacrifice skill, he let out a sigh of relief. You idiot! After checking, Yihua scolded angrily. His face was very gloomy. Lin Xian was so scared that she stuck out her tongue, but she didn't dare to persuade him. Long Houchin lowered his head and said, Teacher, I just wanted to test my ability through actual combat and stimulate my potential. Using the sacrifice skill was something I suddenly realized. Don't be angry, I won't be so impulsive in the future. Yihua said angrily, Bullsh *t. Do you think I am angry because you challenged Yang Wenjiao? You are wrong. I am angry because of your stupidity. Let me ask you, between you and Yang Wenjiao, who is stronger? Long Houchin was stunned for a moment and looked at his teacher in confusion. Naturally, he is much stronger. Yihua snorted. You still know that he is stronger? Then why did you still choose to fight recklessly? Have the battle techniques that you and I learned for the past 2 years been eaten by a dog? Fighting recklessly is very satisfying, isn't it? But have you ever thought, what if this is a battlefield against demons? What if your opponent is demons? What if you have companions by your side waiting for you to rescue them? Do you also fight like this? The series of questions made Long Houchin speechless. Yihua said coldly, How many battle techniques have I taught you? That's right, fighting recklessly is indeed easier to stimulate one's potential, especially when fighting recklessly with an opponent that is stronger than oneself. However, if you really want to increase your battle experience and stimulate your potential, you can't treat it as a competition. It couldn't be treated as a competition, but as a battle of life and death. What should you do in a life and death battle? Didn't I teach you before? Long Houchin lowered his head again. Try to use your skills to deal with the enemy and protect yourself as much as possible. Yihua clenched his fist. To think that you still remember. Now tell me, are you a guardian knight or a punishment knight? Long Houchin was silent. He didn't know how to answer this question of Yihua's. Yihua said indifferently, In terms of talent, even 10 teachers can't compare to you. However, in terms of experience, even 10 of you can't compare to me. Let me help you answer this question. When you need to punish, punish. When you need to protect, protect. However, you have to pay attention to one thing. When you use the punishment knight ability, don't forget your other identity. Your talent is enough to support you to dual cultivate punishment and protection. Since that's the case, you have to display the advantage of fusing them together in a battle. Don't let me see you act foolishly again. Otherwise, you won't be worthy of being my disciple. Yes. Long Houchin hurriedly replied respectfully. Although Yihua's words were scolding him, it was more of a deep concern for him. He knew that his teacher was afraid that he would take the wrong path. After washing up and eating something, Long Houchin started his training again. Although his body's condition was much better in the early morning, it was only his external spiritual energy and his injured body that recovered. His internal spiritual energy was still completely gone. Only the saint's spiritual stove seemed to have recovered its original splendor. There wasn't much left of the medicine that Lin Xian gave him. This time, Long Houchen didn't take it. Instead, he quietly sat cross-legged. After entering a meditative state, he carefully sensed the spiritual energy fluctuations within the saint's spiritual stove. Gentle, vigorous, boundless. When his consciousness entered the saint's spiritual stove, he immediately felt these three kinds of auras. The spiritual energy inside the saint's spiritual furnace that he felt before didn't seem to exist, but he saw a bit of golden light. That golden light was very small, but it was still very eye-catching within the milky white body of the saint's spiritual stove. The golden light was only the size of a grain of rice. However, what made Long Houchen indescribably surprised was that this golden light was actually in a liquid state. Liquid spiritual energy? Could it be that after using the sacrifice skill, I accidentally cultivated a liquid spiritual energy? Subconsciously, Long Houchen began to train according to his usual training method. Because his body currently didn't have any internal spiritual energy, the absorption speed of the external light elements was much slower than usual. However, one mustn't forget that he had the constitution of the Son of Light. His affinity with the light elements was incomparable to anyone else's. Traces of gentle light elements slowly entered Long Houchen's body. He immediately discovered that he didn't need to urge them. These light elements seemed to have found their source and quietly flowed towards the saint's spiritual stove, directly merging with it. The saint's spiritual stove's reaction was very calm. Under its original milky white color, it slightly emitted a faint golden light. Looking inside the spiritual stove, it was just as Long Houchen expected. The light elements absorbed through training directly poured into that drop of golden liquid spiritual energy, becoming a part of it. Because the concentration of the light elements absorbed from the external world was extremely thin, it was far from being comparable to the drop of liquid spiritual energy. Therefore, after the light elements from the external world merged with it, that drop of liquid spiritual energy the size of a grain of rice simply didn't have any reaction. However, this didn't affect Long Houchen's excitement. Without a doubt, he had truly cultivated a liquid spiritual energy. The problem now was how to strengthen it and how to make it come out of the saint's spiritual stove. Thinking up to here, Long Houchen took out a spirit-gathering pill for training and consumed it. The name spirit-gathering pill was something he came up with himself. As the spirit-gathering pill entered his stomach, Long Houchen's blood and chi were immediately mobilized. His body's sensitivity to the light elements in the air suddenly increased. This spirit-gathering pill was a rank 4 medicinal pill that could only be taken by a rank 4 expert. Although Long Houchen had lost his internal spiritual energy, his body was still that of a rank 4 Great Knight. His meridians were tough enough to withstand the effects of the pill, so there was nothing wrong with it. Sure enough, after taking the spirit-gathering pill, the speed at which he absorbed the light elements suddenly increased. The light elements in the air rushed in from all directions, entering his body through his pores and breathing. Then, like rivers flowing into the sea, they were immediately swallowed by the saint's spiritual stove. At this moment, the saint's spiritual stove was like a bottomless abyss. No matter how much light elements Long Houchen absorbed, it would all be swallowed up. The only change was that the saint's spiritual stove itself was emitting a golden light that gradually became stronger. The drop of liquid spiritual energy within the saint's spiritual stove also began to show signs of gradually increasing in size. Just like this, Long Houchen was completely immersed in his own cultivation state. Cultivation was dry and dull, but feeling the little bit of accumulation brought an extremely strong sense of satisfaction. This was also a common point among all professions. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had already passed. In these 3 days, aside from eating, Long Houchen was completely immersed in his own cultivation state. He also told Yi Hua about the current situation of his cultivation. However, Yi Hua was not clear on what was going on with him. Silently waiting was Yi Hua's only method, and this was without a doubt a good thing. Although he didn't know what mysteries existed within the saint's spiritual stove, Yihua was willing to see Long Haochen's current state. Even if he was unable to control everything. That's right. Who could control the growth of the scion of light? However, Yihua had a lot of experience in the aspect of cultivation. To be able to rely on his inferior talent to cultivate to become an Earth Knight, who knew how many different cultivation methods he had researched. Therefore, after careful consideration, he told Long Haochen a possibility, and that was that the saint's spiritual stove was helping him nurture his spiritual energy. Nurturing the liquid internal spiritual energy. Long Haochen's cultivation clearly hadn't reached the 5th rank. Under these circumstances, it was originally impossible for liquid spiritual energy to appear. Although the appearance of that drop of liquid spiritual energy was very coincidental, Yihua was completely sure that if it was another person, even if they used the sacrifice skill, they still wouldn't be able to have such a fortuitous encounter. The only explanation was the saint's spiritual stove's effect. The saint's spiritual stove produced a special space inside, helping Long Haochen complete the compression of his internal spiritual energy, thus forming the liquid spiritual energy. At that time, when Long Haochen relied on the sacrifice skill to fight against Yang Wenjiao, he exhausted all of his spiritual energy and, to a certain extent, burned his blood and qi. The spiritual stove was one of the most mystical things in the world, and it itself had a certain protective effect. It was very likely that the saint's spiritual stove protected the last seed of spiritual energy in Long Haochen's body, and then gradually produced a compression effect inside. Long Haochen himself already had some understanding of the liquid spiritual energy, and the biggest characteristic of the threshold of the 5th rank was the word compression. Through the practice of the stored power skill, he gradually found the method to compress it. It was just that he was still unable to directly compress it. He could only rely on the skill to find the feeling. But now it was different. The existence of the saint's spiritual stove directly helped him solve this compression problem, and gave birth to the true liquid spiritual energy. As long as he could think of a way to take out the liquid spiritual energy from the saint's spiritual stove, and then cultivate his internal spiritual energy to more than 2,000, then the huge bottleneck of the 5th rank wouldn't be a problem for him. With this kind of judgment, Yihua was naturally overjoyed. He repeatedly urged Long Haochen to steadily practice in his room, even if it meant delaying the finals of this year's Monster Hunters selection tournament. He was still very young, and in the future, there would be many opportunities for him to participate in the tournament. In comparison, being able to take advantage of this opportunity to break through to the Earth Knight rank was obviously more important. The saint's spiritual stove wasn't big, and its entire volume was about the size of a small wine cup. One could imagine how much liquid spiritual energy could be stored in such a small stove. After 3 days of bitter practice, Long Haochen had exhausted the remaining mana-gathering pills, but the saint's spiritual stove was also close to overflowing, and the inside was filled to the brim with dense liquid spiritual energy. These 3 days of practice were actually very painful. Because there was no internal spiritual energy within his body, Long Haochen's absorption speed of the external light elements was moderate, maintaining a very slow state. If it wasn't for the assistance of the mana-gathering pills, perhaps even if he spent 10 days or even half a month, he still wouldn't be able to fill the saint's spiritual stove to the brim. If that happened, he was afraid that he really wouldn't be able to participate in the finals. What Long Haochen didn't know was that when Long Xingwu gave him the saint's spiritual stove, he already knew that the saint's spiritual stove had other uses in addition to its auxiliary role in battle. It was just that he didn't directly tell his son about it. Long Xingwu was a Knight of the Seal, and had experienced the entire process of cultivation from the first step to the 9th step. Therefore, he was even more aware of the importance of one's own comprehension in the process of cultivation. With his cultivation, he could even let Long Haochen break through to the 5th step earlier, and become a fairly good expert without the slightest effort. However, if he really did that, even if Long Houchen had the Son of Light physique, he would probably never be able to touch the threshold of the 9th step in his lifetime. Therefore, he chose to let Long Houchen explore on his own, and in the process of exploring, constantly strengthen himself, and comprehend all kinds of difficult problems in the process of cultivation. Regarding Long Houchen, Long Xingwu had absolute confidence. If the possessor of the Son of Light physique didn't have enough comprehension, then who else could have it? The special ability of the Saint's spiritual stove was called nurture. Therefore, it wasn't only a stove to assist in battle, but also a stove to assist in cultivation. This secret was classified as top secret within the Knights Templars. This was because the Saint's spiritual stove's assistance in battle was only useful to the knight and the warrior. Other professions naturally didn't have much interest in this stove. Moreover, the self-recovery ability of the warrior was far inferior to that of the guardian knight. Later on, this Saint's spiritual stove became the exclusive stove of the Knights Templars. The Saint's spiritual stove was extremely rare. When the other big temples discovered a new Saint's spiritual stove, they would all choose to exchange it with the Knights Templars. Only the internal department of the Knights Templars, after countless attempts, could come up with a conclusion. That was, as long as the first stove a human possessed was a Saint's spiritual stove, and the person's cultivation couldn't exceed the 4th step, then the Saint's spiritual stove's nurture special effect would be activated. This nurture special effect could only be discovered by the person who possessed the Saint's spiritual stove. Normally, its performance wasn't very obvious, and it only had a very weak auxiliary effect towards the cultivation of spiritual force. However, once it reached a critical juncture, the Saint's spiritual stove's nurture special effect would play a huge role. For example, the spiritual force liquefaction that Long Houchen was facing, as well as the spiritual aperture that he had to condense when he became a Radiance Knight. With the help of the Saint's spiritual stove, it could be said that a breakthrough was certain. Everyone studied by themselves, and the temple was no exception. If the other temple discovered that the Saint's spiritual stove had such an auxiliary effect on cultivation, it was likely that no one would sell it to the Knights Templars. Therefore, this secret had always been kept secret. At least until now, it hadn't been discovered by the other temple. In fact, even if Long Houchen didn't use the sacrifice skill, he would quickly discover the Saint's spiritual stove's effect. This was because as long as he completed the evolution of the Saint's spiritual stove, its nurture effect would directly help him break through to the 5th step. Previously, Long Houchen believed that breaking through to the 5th step was the turning point for the Saint's spiritual stove's evolution. Was it finally full? Teacher had said that when the spiritual force was full, it would overflow. Since the spiritual force was already full, then it should be overflowing. No matter how calm Long Houchen usually was, when faced with whether or not he could break through to the 5th step, how could his heart not be nervous? As the cultivation continued, the liquid spiritual force within the Saint's spiritual stove became more and more concentrated. Little by little, it rose up and was about to overflow. Finally, the Saint's spiritual stove could no longer contain any more liquid spiritual force. A tiny drop of golden liquid slowly flowed down the edge of the Saint's spiritual stove. Boom! In an instant, Long Houchen felt his body tremble violently. A dense aura of light had already spread out from his body. A golden halo rose from the top of his head, faintly condensing into a faint golden cloud. This was the ascending spirit cloud that represented advancement. Only when breaking through a large rank would the ascending spirit cloud appear. The total amount of liquid spiritual force in one drop was very small, but it illuminated the meridians within Long Houchen's body. The familiar golden light quickly spread through his meridians, quickly spreading to every corner of his body. Compared to the pale golden inner spiritual force from before, the current color had clearly deepened by several degrees. It was already close to a bright golden luster. Although it was only a drop of liquid spiritual force that flowed into Long Houchen's body, the speed at which he absorbed the light element increased dramatically in that instant. His perception of the outside world also abruptly increased. The powerful feeling from the inside to the outside finally appeared once again. At the same time, the saint's spiritual cauldron also emitted thousands of rays of light. One could clearly see that Long Houchen's chest lit up with a dense white halo. The halo spread and enveloped his body. The saint's spiritual stove in his chest slowly rotated, and drops of liquid spiritual force were thrown out from within. The saint's spiritual stove, which had originally been dyed golden by the liquid spiritual force, once again returned to its original milky white color. It slightly struggled, and traces of strange patterns began to appear on the saint's spiritual stove's surface. They were existences that looked like cloud patterns that were spiraling in the air. The original milky white color became a bit more sparkling and translucent. Its volume didn't increase, but the essence of heaven and earth contained within it made Long Houchen feel it more clearly. Evolved, the saint's spiritual stove evolved. Long Houchen immediately realized what had happened. Not only did the saint's spiritual stove evolve, he could also clearly see through his inner vision that a gentle golden liquid was quietly spiraling around the saint's spiritual stove. Shockingly, it was liquid spiritual force. Previously, when he used storing power to cultivate, liquid spiritual force also appeared. But at that time, as long as he dispersed the storing power, the spiritual force would immediately return to normal. But now it was different. Inside his body, around the saint's spiritual furnace, a liquid spiritual power had truly appeared. Although the total amount of this liquid spiritual force was at most equivalent to 100 points, but with these 100 points of liquid spiritual force, would it be far from returning to the peak? 2000. My spiritual force has definitely broken through 2000. At the fifth step, I am an Earth Knight. A silly smile appeared on Long Houchen's face. How could he not be excited? A 14-year-old at the fifth step. How inconceivable was this? What he needed to do now was to restore all of his spiritual force. Up to 2000 points of liquid spiritual force would allow him to completely enter another level. Yang Wenjiao, the next time we meet, perhaps I will truly have the strength to challenge you. In the next few days, Long Houchen was completely immersed in cultivation. Like a metamorphosing silkworm, he completed the process of qualitative change in just a few short days. Alliance Executive Office. Just like the Sacred City, the Alliance Executive Office was also a hexagonal building. The periphery was the office of each of the 6 great temple, while the core area was the place where they discussed important matters. The Monster Hunters selection competition was of utmost importance to the Temple League. The preliminary round had already smoothly concluded 3 days ago. 60 of the most outstanding young people had been selected, which meant that there would be another 12 Monster Hunters in the Temple League, injecting fresh blood into the large group of Monster Hunters. Today was the day of drawing lots for the finals. All 60 participants would be divided into 6 groups by drawing lots, and they would compete in the 6 branch venues of the Sanctuary Alliance's great trial field for round-robin matches. In other words, in the group matches, every participant would have to experience as many as 9 matches. This way, not only would accidents be reduced as much as possible, it would also allow these young people to continuously increase their actual combat experience through battles. The top 2 of each group and the 4 best third-placed participants would enter the knockout round of the top 16. The finals were even longer than the preliminary round. However, one must not forget that there was almost no reward for the preliminary round, but the reward for the top 3 in the finals was 3 spiritual stoves. For any profession, spiritual stoves represented great power. In the preliminary round, as it was a competition within each temple, there might be some mercy. However, in the finals, all the participants would definitely go all out. In order to fight for the 3 spiritual stoves, they would not hold back at all. There were more than 10 staff waiting in front of the Alliance Executive Office, checking the identity of every participant and bringing them into the Executive Office. In the finals, the participants' teachers were no longer allowed to watch the competition. The Monster Hunter's confidentiality level was extremely high in the Alliance. It had to be kept strictly confidential, even for the newbies. There was only an hour to report. If they missed it, they would not be able to participate in the finals anymore. The Alliance had strict control over time. If a powerhouse did not have the concept of time, it would be easy for them to make a huge mistake in the future. Haha, it's time for the finals. I'm looking forward to it. Hearty laughter was heard, and 2 people walked toward the executive office at the same time. A man and a woman. The woman was wearing pink armor. She was tall, and her petite body was completely wrapped in a streamlined chainmail, making her look valiant. Her red hair was draped behind her head, and she was not wearing a helmet, revealing a charming face. Her eyes were full of charm, which could only appear when one's spiritual power had been trained to a certain level. The young man beside her was even more eye-catching. Compared to the woman, the young man was slightly shorter. He was wearing a light golden chainmail, and his black hair was draped behind his head. His clear light golden eyes seemed to have a faint halo of light circulating around them. His handsome and exquisite face was even more attractive than the girl next to him. His eyes were gentle and calm, and he always had a faint smile on his face. No matter how one looked at him, he looked like a harmless little boy. The 2 arrived at the entrance of the executive office, and a staff immediately came to greet them. In order not to waste the combat power of the 6 temples, these external service staff were all hired ordinary people, not professionals. Are the 2 of you here for the finals? Please show me the competition number you used in the preliminary round for verification. The young staff was extremely respectful. This was because he knew that those who could participate in the finals of the Monster Hunters preliminary round were the best among the younger generation of the Temple League, and they were all important figures in the future. The man and the woman handed over their number, and soon, the staff completed the registration. Knights Templars, Long Houchen, Lin Xin. Please follow me. The man and the woman were Lin Xin and Long Houchen. The 2 came together. At this moment, a surprised voice suddenly came from behind them. Wait for me. Along with the voice, a person quickly but clumsily ran towards them. Long Houchen and Lin Xin turned their heads, and immediately saw a handsome face. His dark green long hair swayed left and right as he ran. If he were to add some but shaking movements, people would definitely mistake his gender. The white magic robe on him set off his outstanding appearance even more. Unfortunately, he was facing Long Houchen, who was even better. Lin Xin? Long Houchen looked at him in surprise. Lin Xin laughed and said, "Looks like I made the right bet. My luck is pretty good. I didn't expect you to make it to the finals. Wow, Sister Lin Xin, you're even prettier now. You look so heroic in your armor. How about you pick me if you get into the top 3? I'll have enough pills." Lin Xin giggled and said, "Do you think I have a chance of getting into the top 3? Hurry up and register, then we'll go in together." As for Lin Xin, Long Houchen clearly had a better impression of him than the first time they met. If it wasn't for him, Long Haoyue wouldn't have been able to obtain that seemingly important stone orb. Moreover, the pills Lin Xin gave him were genuine. Without that bottle of essence-gathering pills, Long Houchen wouldn't have been able to break through to the 5th rank in such a short time. Lin Xin heard Lin Xion's words and quickly agreed. He took out his number and handed it to the staff. The staff was obviously shocked when he saw his number. His expression was even more respectful than that of Long Houchen and Lin Xin. Magic Temple, Lin Xin. The 3 of you, please come with me. The 3 of them followed the staff inside. Long Houchen smiled and said, "Brother Lin is very strong indeed. Your preliminaries must have been very smooth, right? Lin Xian said proudly. It was all right. I just got lucky and got first place in the preliminaries. First place in the preliminaries? Long Haochen and Lin Xian looked at each other in dismay. Both of them were taken aback. They had also experienced the preliminaries and naturally knew how intense the competition was. Although the number of participants in the Magic Temple wasn't as many as the Knights Templars, the cruelty of the competition wasn't any less. Lin Xian actually got first place in the Magic Temple's preliminaries. How strong did he have to be? At least he was at the 5th rank. It seemed that his teacher's guess wasn't right. Long Haochen looked at him in confusion and said, Brother Lin is so strong. I'm afraid you have a higher chance of getting into the top 3 in the finals than me. Lin Xian shook his head and said, I can't say. The finals are different from the preliminaries. Actually, luck is very important. After listening to Long Haochen's words, he couldn't help but think, if the finals can be like the preliminaries, where I end up in the top 3, wouldn't I be able to choose the strongest person to follow me? It wouldn't be a problem for him to form his own team. As they spoke, they had already entered the Alliance Executive Office. In front of a wide arched door, the staff stopped and made a gesture of invitation. The arched door was open. There were 2 warriors inside, one on each side. The 3 of them walked through the arched door and entered a wide hall. The entire hall was circular in shape. There was a platform about 5 feet tall in the center and several chairs around it. It could accommodate about 500 people at the same time. A huge crystal lamp hung down from the top, illuminating the entire hall. Lin Xian said in a low voice, This is the small conference hall of the Alliance Executive Office. Today's draw should be here. Lin Xian looked at him in confusion and said, Are you familiar with this place? Lin Xian chuckled and said, I've been here a few times in the past. Long Haochen and Lin Xian looked at each other and felt that Lin Xian was more and more mysterious. At this moment, there were already many people in the conference hall. Long Haochen looked around subconsciously and soon saw Yang Wenjiao. Yang Wenjiao also saw him. Compared to the preliminaries, Yang Wenjiao's face was a little pale. When he saw Long Haochen, his expression changed, but there was obvious hostility in his eyes. What's wrong with him? He doesn't look too good. Long Haochen thought to himself. However, his fighting spirit also rose. If he had the chance to meet Yang Wenjiao, he would definitely challenge him again. With the experience from the previous battle, Long Haochen realized that he had many shortcomings. Teacher was right. Why should I fight him head-on? Am I worse than him in terms of techniques? Soon, he saw another familiar face. Not far in front of them, a large bald head shone brightly under the light of the crystal chandelier. Wasn't that Sima Xian? He had also entered the finals. Thinking back to his weird fighting style, Long Haochen couldn't help but smile. A violent priest who didn't know how to heal. Knock, knock, knock. The familiar sound made Long Haowu stand up reflexively and look behind him. He wasn't the only one. There were at least 10 pairs of eyes in the conference hall looking behind him. Most of them belonged to the Assassin Temple. Their faces were covered with black veils, but the respect in their eyes couldn't be hidden. Yang Wenjiao, who also turned around because of the sound, was stunned. It's her, it's her, it's her. Yang Wenjiao didn't know why the Knights Templars chose to keep the peace. He didn't ask his grandfather for help either. Losing was his humiliation, and he had to rely on his own abilities to get back at them. However, seeing Kai again here, the shock in his heart was unparalleled. The fact that she was here meant that she had also participated in this year's Monster Hunters trials. This proved that she was not even 25 years old. Thinking back to the battle that day, Yang Wenjiao couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. The wounds on his body that had completely healed seemed to be aching. Kai's tyrannical attacks left an indelible impression in his heart. At that moment, he saw Long Haochen walking towards the blind girl who was using her green bamboo cane to touch the ground. Kai you really came. Long Houchen quickly stepped forward. After not seeing her for a few days, he felt something in his heart being released when he heard the familiar sound of her bamboo cane. Almost without hesitation, he reached for her hand. With her green bamboo cane on the ground, Kai body moved back half a foot, avoiding Long Houchen's hand. She whispered shyly in his ear, "There are so many people here." Long Houchen scratched his head awkwardly. "Sorry, let's sit over there." As he spoke, he didn't pull Kai-er's hand this time. Instead, he grabbed her green bamboo cane and led her to where he was sitting. Seeing this, Yang Wenzhao's heart was filled with grief and indignation. It was really because of this brat. What an undeserved disaster. But the assassins from the Assassin Temple didn't think so. Each of them had a strange look in their eyes. That seemed to be a knight. What was his relationship with Big Sister Number 1? Although Kai was only ranked 10th in the Assassin Temple trials, in the hearts of these assassins, they almost worshipped her. Chapter 31. Long Houchen used the green bamboo cane to pull Kai back to where she was sitting. He asked Lin Xian to give up a seat and arranged Kai to sit next to him. Lin Xian was not too surprised. After all, he had only known Long Houchen for a short time. However, Lin Xian was surprised. "Brother, who is this?" Long Houchen blushed and said, "This is Kai. Sister, she's my friend." Lin Xian looked at him and then at Kai. A strange smile appeared on her face. "Hee, she's your little girlfriend. Hello, Miss Kai. My name is Lin Xian. I'm Long Houchen's sworn sister." "Hello," Kai said softly. However, she only said 2 words and stopped talking. Long Houchen whispered in her ear, "Kai, are you here for the competition too?" "Yes." Kai nodded slightly. Long Houchen could not help but say, "Why haven't I heard you mention this before?" Kai said, "You haven't asked me why I'm here in the sacred city." Long Houchen scratched his head. He did not seem to have asked. Lin Xian said, "Miss Kai, seeing that you're wearing a black veil, you should be from the Assassin Temple, right?" Kai nodded lightly. To the side, Lin Xian's face was filled with astonishment. A blind assassin? However, he had been in the society for a long time. He would not offend others. Although he was surprised, he did not ask. On the second floor of the meeting hall, a few people in black with veils on their faces were looking down. From their white hair, one could tell that they were not young. "That's that kid? How does he know the saint?" An old man in black could not help but ask. "I'm not sure. According to our investigation, the saint doesn't seem to know this person." "Don't know? You don't know him, yet you hurt the grandson of the Knights Templars for him? Is this how your Eagle Squad investigates?" "Elder Ing, don't be angry. You also know the saintess' temper and her senses. He doesn't like being followed by us." "Humph." The black-clad old man standing in the middle was none other than the Assassin Temple's Vice-Temple Master, the Chivalry Hall's Hall Master, Ing Suifeng. No matter how he looked at it, he found Long Houchen to be an eyesore. He actually dared to abduct the reincarnation saintess. To think that Han Q, that old geezer, came to me to denounce me. I should be the one to denounce them. The Knights Templars even abducted Kai. The more Ing Suifeng thought about it, the angrier he became. He could not help but exude a sharp killing intent. Long Houchen, who was conversing with Kai in a low voice, felt his entire body go cold. In that instant it felt as if his blood was about to freeze. A thick layer of golden light immediately burst forth from his body. The golden light did not spread outwards. Instead, it condensed, forming a huge golden sword above Long Houchen's head. Ing Suifeng exclaimed in surprise. "5th grade? Isn't it 4th grade? Old Eagle, how did you find out?" "It's 4th grade, right?" The old man standing beside him was filled with doubt. Unless he just broke through in the past few days." "Ing Suifeng, what are you trying to do, you old geezer?" An angry voice rang out. In the next moment, Han Q had already appeared in front of Ing Suifeng. With a wave of his right hand, a layer of golden light enveloped the two of them, isolating them from the outside world. Ing Suifeng was also in a bad mood. What am I doing? What do you think I'm doing? You little brats of the Knights Templars want to kidnap Kai Er. He almost said the two words Holy Maiden. Han Qiu snorted angrily. What do you mean kidnap? She was willing, okay? Free love, do you understand? Ing Suifeng did not show any weakness as he roared. Free love my ass. Our Kai Er is only 14 years old. That Long Haochen is clearly an old cow eating young grass. Han Qiu was furious. Bullshit. You're the old cow eating young grass. Our Long Haochen is only 14 years old this year. He's only a few months older than him at most. Eh? Only 14 years old. A faint smile appeared in Ing Suifeng's eyes. A 14-year-old rank 5 knight. This is really shocking. Han Qiu really wanted to slap himself. He had rushed over because of Ing Suifeng's sudden killing intent towards Long Haochen. The fact that Yang Wenjiao had been injured by the Assassin Temple had already caused the upper echelons of the Knights Templars to be extremely dissatisfied. If something were to happen to the rising star Long Haochen, the good relationship between the two temples that had existed for many years would really be shaken. He did not expect that under Ing Suifeng's provocation, he would accidentally spill the beans. I was wrong. It's 24 years old. Han Qiu immediately calmed down. He restrained his anger and said indifferently. Ing Suifeng walked forward, laughed, and patted his shoulder. Yes, it's 24 years old. I understand. From your mouth to my ears, what is our relationship? I will definitely keep it a secret for you. Just like how you will keep it a secret for us. Doesn't this strengthen the close relationship between our two temples? At this time, Han Qiu was really suffering in silence. He looked at Ing Suifeng with a gloomy face and snorted heavily. You two old things, what kind of shameful things are you doing here? At this time, an old voice sounded. It was an old man wearing a golden magic robe. He looked at the two people in the golden light with a puzzled face. Han Qiu raised his hand and dispersed the isolation light. It's nothing. Ing Suifeng is having a seizure. I'm here to take care of him. Ing Suifeng had just gotten a big advantage, so he was in a good mood. That's right. I was having a seizure just now. I'm fine now. Old Lin, the group drawing is about to begin. I heard that your kid has also entered the finals. The old magician's face changed. Humph, don't mention that little bastard to me. I get angry when I mention him. Ing Suifeng laughed and said, That's enough. In fact, you're very proud of yourself. Your grandson's attainments in potioneering are even appreciated by a certain powerful person in your temple. The old magician glared at him and said, That little bastard's attainments in potioneering are really good. But I don't know what he did wrong. He just had to join Monster Hunters. Han Qiu said, He's still much better than my kid. He's so arrogant, but he didn't even pass the preliminary round. Didn't Han Yu break through to the 5th rank? How come he didn't even pass the preliminary round? The old magician looked curious, but he didn't hide the teasing expression on his face. Lin Chen, you old thing, just gloat. Humph. Han Qian's face was filled with displeasure. Lin Chen laughed and said, How is this gloating? I thought only my little bastard was disgraced. Turns out that your kid is also disgraced. This makes me feel better. At least my kid made it to the finals. You! Han Qiu glared at Lin Chen. What? You want to fight? Come on. I've recently researched how to use a 9th rank forbidden spell. Although it's not complete yet, I can try it on you. However, I can try it on you. Lin Chen was not afraid at all. Enough. Don't fight like cocks the moment you meet. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? A gentle female voice sounded. A middle-aged woman wearing a white robe slowly walked over. Her long golden hair was draped behind her. Her white robe was embroidered with golden high elves. Although she wasn't young anymore, her beautiful face was still charming. Seeing her, Han Qiu and Lin Chen were obviously stunned. They both harumphed but didn't say anything. Ying Suifeng smiled and nodded at the woman in the white robe. Nice to meet you, Ruo Shui. If someone heard the way she addressed her, they would definitely be shocked. This woman in the white robe, who looked to be in her 40s, was actually a cardinal of the Temple of the Priest. That was a rank 8 powerhouse. And looking at how Han Qiu and Lin Chen acted, it was obvious that they gave her face. Ruo Shui smiled and nodded. Nice to meet you, Temple Master Ying. Sighing, she continued. I heard you guys talking about the preliminary round. Our Temple of the Priests also has a little monster. The other 3 people's gazes fell on him at the same time. The 6th temple had a certain competitive relationship with each other. It was one of the competition methods in the finals of the Monster Hunters trials. Hence, they wouldn't report the situation of the preliminary round to each other. At this moment, looking at Ruo Shui, who looked like she was having a headache, they were naturally curious. Ruo Shui sighed and said, For the next preliminary round, I'm afraid we'll have to change some rules. As she said that, her gaze naturally fell on a certain bald man below. In the meeting hall, the golden light that appeared on Long Haochen's body attracted the attention of many participants. However, the murderous intent came quickly and disappeared just as quickly. Long Haochen quickly returned to normal, but his back was still drenched in cold sweat. Kai Er's eyes moved. Just when Long Haochen felt the intense murderous intent, she had already raised her left hand. Only when the murderous intent disappeared did she quietly put her hand down. What happened? Li Xian asked curiously. Long Haochen shook his head and said, I don't know either. Just now, I felt like someone had locked onto me. There was a very strong murderous intent. Lin Xian said nonchalantly, It's nothing. Someone just wanted to test you. Did you see that? On the 2nd floor, the 6 temples will all send their higher-ups to watch the lot drawing ceremony. It must be one of them who has nothing better to do. This is our Alliance Executive Office. Who dares to cause trouble here? At this moment, an old man in light gold martial arts attire walked up to the platform in the middle of the meeting hall. The old man was burly and seemed to be even more muscular than the bald man. His short white hair stood up like steel needles. His age didn't make his body slack at all. The muscles under the martial arts attire were rippling like granite. On the light gold martial arts attire, there were 8 silver dragons embroidered on it. His gaze was even more majestic. As soon as he appeared, the pressure from the roof naturally caused the entire place to quiet down. Everyone is here. The grouping ceremony will now begin. All the participants' numbers will remain the same as in the preliminary round. I believe your teachers have already told you about the finals, so I won't repeat it. Now, let's start the lot drawing. Every 10 people will form a group. After the lot drawing, you will head directly to the training field for the first round. As he spoke, a huge crystal ball slowly rose from below the platform. The crystal ball had a diameter of 1 meter and was hollow. There were 60 orange-yellow balls in it, and there seemed to be words on each of them. There were 6 hollow crystal pillars around the crystal ball, and there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 symbols on the top of the crystal ball. The old man didn't seem to do anything, but the 60 orange-yellow balls in the crystal ball suddenly jumped violently. Then, one by one, the balls were thrown out of the 6 holes around the big crystal ball, which were almost invisible to the naked eye, and fell right into the 6 crystal pillars. Because of the distance, the words on the balls couldn't be seen clearly. However, the participants sitting in the meeting hall, apart from Kai Er, all of them stared at the crystal pillars with their eyes wide open, trying to find their numbers. Soon, all 60 balls entered the crystal pillars. There were exactly 10 balls in each crystal pillar. The old man on the platform said calmly, I am the Deputy Temple Master of the Warrior Temple, the Director of the Berserker Hall. This time, the lot drawing will be supervised by the Deputy Temple Masters of the temple on the 2nd floor. If there are no problems, I will announce the results of the lot drawing. On the second floor, Rua Shui's gentle voice sounded. Everything is normal. Temple Master Ren, please announce the result. Ren Wukwang nodded towards the second floor with a smile on his face. He walked in front of a crystal pillar and 10 orange-red balls leaped out of it. They lined up in a row and floated in front of him. The first group of the finals will be held at the Sanctuary Alliance's training field, the Knights' training field. The names of the first group are as follows: Knight number 1, Warrior number 2, Warrior number 67. When he heard Knight number 1, Long Haochen looked towards Yang Wenjiao. It was obvious that this was the group that Yang Wenjiao was in. He really hoped that his name would appear in this group, but it was a pity that things didn't go as he wished. His name didn't appear in this group. The names of the first group has been announced. Please stand up. The staff will bring you to the competition venue to begin the first round robin. Yang Wenjiao and the rest slowly stood up and left under the lead of the staff. Before he left, he took a look at Long Haochen and Kair with a hint of regret in his eyes. Just like how Long Haochen wanted to challenge him again, he also wanted to challenge Kair with his full strength. The second group of the finals will be held at the Sanctuary Alliance's training field, the Magic Training Field. The names of the second group are as follows: Knight number 98, Assassin number 1, Priest number 18, Mage number 1. When Lin Xian heard 98, she was obviously nervous and excited. She looked around and whispered to Long Haochen, "Little brother, who do you think Assassin number 1 is? He's a grade 5 assassin. Do you think I have a chance?" At the same time, she glanced at Lin Xian. "Isn't he the mage number 1? Long Haochen shook his head and said, "Big sister, you can definitely do it. Do your best." Kair sat there, her expression as cold as ever. Other than when she was alone with Long Haochen, she was always like this. When Ren Wukwang announced that the second group would follow the staff to the magic training field, Lin Xian hurriedly stood up. On the other side of Long Haochen, Lin Xian wasn't the only one who stood up. Kair also stood up. "I'll go first," Kair said softly to Long Haochen. "Ah." Long Haochen clearly remembered that in this group, there seemed to be only one person who called out assassins, and that was the assassin number 1. Kair's soft voice sounded in his ears again. "Be careful during the competition. Don't get injured again. After the competition, I'll wait for you there." "Wow, little sister Kair, so you're number 1, assassin number 1. Come, let me pull you along." Lin Xian's personality was straightforward and enthusiastic. She didn't hesitate to pull Kair's bamboo cane and walked out. Kair paused for a moment, but when she remembered that Lin Xian was Long Haochen's big sister, she followed her. Lin Xian rubbed his forehead and smiled bitterly. "What a headache! It seems like luck isn't always on my side." The overall strength of the second group was much stronger than the first group. His information network was much better than the other participants. The number 1 assassin number 1 was actually the little blind girl beside him. This was something he didn't expect. It was said that she was the only grade 5 assassin in the Temple of Assassins. In one round of the competition, she challenged 11 other participants at the same time. In the end, no one dared to fight her. What kind of strength was that? And that number 18 from the Temple of the Priest. She was the champion of the Temple of the Priests in the preliminary round. While Lin Xian was feeling gloomy, Long Haochen also saw that the shiny bald man in front of him also stood up. His tall and sturdy figure didn't have the slightest hint of a priest's appearance as he followed the staff with large strides. Most of the participants were gloating. There was no doubt that the second group was a group of death. Number 1 assassin, number 1 sorcerer, and 2 number 1s from the 6 great temples were in this group. The others were not weak either. The ones who were the most excited were those from the Temple of Assassins. None of them were in the same group as Kair. It would be strange if they were not in a good mood. The third group of the finals, the venue is the Warrior Trial Field. The list is as follows. Number 1 Summoner, Number 2 Sorcerer, Number 97 Knight, Number 23 Warrior, Number 13 Assassin, Number 16 Assassin, Number 18 Assassin, Number 24 Assassin. There were actually 4 assassins in this group of 10. Moreover, it sounded like this group was not weak either. The mysterious number 1 from the Temple of Souls would be in this group. There was also the number 2 from the Temple of Magic. When the 4 assassins stood up and followed the staff out, their expressions, which were originally rejoicing, instantly turned ugly. That's right, they were not in the same group as Kair. But who did they see? Wasn't that the one who was sitting with number 1 just now? Although the Knights Templars and the Temple of Assassins had blocked the news, these assassins who were able to enter the top 10 were all elites of the younger generation. Naturally, they all had masters behind them. They vaguely knew that the sudden tension between the 2 Temple of Assassins a few days ago was because number 1 assassinated a participant from the Knights Templars. And the reason was actually because of another participant from the Knights Templars. Without a doubt, it was this Knight 97 in front of them. Looking at Long Houchen's handsome face that could even be described as peerless, the assassins were even more certain of their guess. He wailed in his heart. If they were to win against the 97th Knight, or even injure him, would it be? Naturally, Long Houchen did not know what these assassins were thinking. As he followed the staff out, he also observed the participants in his group. The ones who caught his attention the most were the 2 girls. The petite one seemed to be even younger than him. She looked weak and delicate. She looked at the other participants in her group curiously from time to time. Occasionally, her face would show a hint of shyness. She was wearing a strange blue robe. The other girl was much taller. She was at least 7 meters tall. Her black ponytail made her look neat and tidy. Her features were picturesque. She looked gentle and lovely. However, she was carrying a giant shield on her back that was even taller than her. As the length of the shield was longer than her height, she could only carry the shield horizontally. Other than the top of the giant shield, the curves on both sides were all in the shape of a sharp blade. The 2 curves finally intersected to form a sharp point. It looked like the entire shield was a giant sharp blade. The thickest part of the shield was probably about a foot. There were 9 holes the size of a fist on the front. It was empty inside. I wonder what it's used for. How heavy is this shield? Even a knight like Long Houchen looked a little scared. However, the girl seemed to be carrying it as light as a feather. The Sanctuary Alliance Executive Office was not far from the Sanctuary Alliance Great Trial Field. Soon, they arrived at the Warrior Trial Field. After drawing lots again, the order of the competition was determined. The group competition would last for 9 days. There would be 5 matches every day. The 10 participants would have to fight with the others. The final ranking would be based on the number of wins. The top 2 had appeared. If the 3rd place had a high number of wins, he would have a chance to advance. As it was a round-robin competition, drawing lots was not very important. After a simple draw, the first match of the finals began. The finals of the Monster Hunters Challenge were even more deserted than the preliminaries. There were fewer people watching from the rostrum. There were only 6 people. However, what the participants did not know was that these 6 people were from the 6th Great Temple. They were in charge of supervising the process of the competition to ensure the fairness of the competition. Before the competition officially began, Long Houchen and the other 9 participants were given a name list. There were no numbers on it, only their names. Long Houchen's first opponent was a member of the Assassin Temple. Her name was Xing Xian. Her name sounded feminine, but in fact, she was a skinny young man with a wretched appearance. First match, Long Houchen vs. Xing Xian. Enter the competition. All the referees of the finals were 7th grade experts. Judging from the attire of today's opponent, he should be a 7th grade combat king from the Warrior Temple. With a shield in his left hand and a sword in his right, Long Houchen slowly walked into the arena. In their group, most of the participants were from the Assassin Temple. There were 4 of them, 2 from the Temple of the Priests, and 1 from each of the other 4 temples. Compared to the second group, Long Houchen felt that his luck was not bad. He had a good chance of entering the top 2. Because the arena is not suitable for assassins, 4 pillars will be raised to cover their figures to ensure the fairness of the competition. It was unknown how the mechanism was activated, but thick stone pillars slowly rose from the ground with a creaking sound, and only stopped when they were 50 feet high. With these 4 pillars, which required 2 people to hug, it was much more advantageous for assassins. Otherwise, in a flat training field, they would not be able to display their speed, dodging, and hiding abilities. The petite Xing Xian's eyes flickered as she looked at Long Houchen, full of wariness. He was complaining in his heart, "Why did I have to fight him first? If it was someone else, they could at least see Big Sister Number 1's reaction. Forget it, let's test him first. Begin." Following the referee's shout, Xing Xian did not advance but retreated instead. He instantly turned into a black shadow and disappeared behind a pillar. For an excellent assassin, the most important thing was to never let the enemy find his exact position. Long Houchen stood there without giving chase. A golden mist of light slowly rose and surrounded his body, shining with a gentle radiance. It was charging. In the third group, the knight was the only one. Naturally, the other participants did not know what kind of fighting style he had. This charging skill was extremely rare. Even among the Knights Templars, not everyone knew about it, let alone the people from the other temple. Apart from the Magic Temple's number 2 and the female warrior with the giant shield, everyone else was confused. They did not understand what Long Houchen was doing. When Long Houchen was charging, his movements also changed. His left hand held the radiant shield in front of his chest. His right hand pointed the lightsaber diagonally to the ground, his feet in front and one behind, ready to react at any time. Xing Xian hid behind the pillar and quickly changed his position. At the same time, he was also observing Long Houchen's movements. Although he did not know what charging was, an assassin's perception had always been very high. He could clearly feel that Long Houchen was becoming more and more dangerous at an alarming rate. Without a doubt, he was using some kind of skill. The longer he used it, the more powerful it would be. There were almost no weaklings in the finals. Xing Xian could not care less about what Big Sister Number 1 thought. His battle instincts made him react in the shortest time possible. In a flash, he had already leapt into the air and landed on a stone pillar to the left of Long Houchen. As he leapt, it could be seen that there was a membrane connecting his arms and ribs. This was a special equipment for assassins. It was called the Wind Riding Wings, and it could produce a gliding effect for a short distance. When attacking an enemy, it could also be used to change direction. It was the favorite equipment of assassins below grade 6. Breath control. An assassin's required skill. Like a leaf, Xing Xian floated to the ground without making any sound. His whole body was practically sticking close to the ground as he flew towards Long Houchen. Not only was the entire process fast, there was not even the slightest sound of breaking through the air. Long Houchen maintained his original posture of accumulating power. The golden mist around his body grew stronger and stronger. Xing Xian's speed was extremely fast. In just a few blinks of an eye, he had already reached Long Houchen's back. His body exploded, and a pitch-black dagger appeared in each of his hands. The left dagger stabbed towards Long Houchen's back, while the right dagger slashed towards Long Houchen's neck. Of course, if Long Houchen did not react, he would not really slit his throat. After all, this was just a competition, and not a battle to the death. In the instant that Xing Xian's daggers attacked, Long Houchen moved. His left foot quickly took half a step forward, only half a step. Then, his shoulder shook and his whole body fell to the left. At the same time, he used his left foot as a fulcrum, and his body spun rapidly. His whole body went from facing Xing Xian to facing him. Xing Xian's throat slash naturally missed without any effect, and the dagger that stabbed towards Long Haochen's back just happened to graze his chainmail, leaving a series of sparks on the chainmail, but did not pierce his body. Shield block. Long Haochen used this skill when his center of gravity was not stable at all. The radiant shield of light exploded with a golden light, and a thick layer of light instantly expanded from the shield, turning into a large shield with a diameter of 2 meters, and directly collided with Xing Xian. Rank 5. In just a moment, Xing Xian judged Long Haochen's cultivation. To be able to use shield block with such power, there was only one explanation, and that was rank 5. He did not have the time to think about anything else. His body instantly curled up in the air, and at the same time, he released his spiritual power. The daggers in his hands flew forward, and simultaneously pierced the radiant shield of light. With a bang, Xing Xian's whole body was sent flying. Long Haochen's cultivation had officially entered the realm of the rank 5, and the shield block using liquid spiritual power was not something that Xing Xian could withstand, not to mention that it had the ready effect. It was like punching a fly. How could a fly resist? However, assassins also had their advantages. In that short period of time, although Xing Xian received a relatively strong impact, he also used the momentum to jump back, dispersing most of the impact. Although both his arms were already numb, at least he was not really injured. Assault, the knight's rank 5 skill. Long Haochen did not move, but when he did, he was like the wind, and his aggression was like fire. At the same time that he forced Xing Xian back, his whole body had already launched an assault like lightning, directly chasing after his opponent. A light sword swept through the air, and a golden blade of light instantly slashed out. It was Light's severing sword. At this time, Xing Xian did not have any place to borrow strength in the air, and coupled with the fact that his whole body was numb from the shield block, it was easier said than done to dodge. If he was hit by Long Haochen's rank 5 light severing sword, he would immediately lose. With his cultivation, Xing Xian once again proved to everyone that there were no weaklings who could enter the finals. Facing such a disadvantageous situation, he suddenly spread out his left arm, and the wind-wielding wings under his ribs extended. His body actually used the wind-wielding wings to quickly deflect, narrowly avoiding Long Haochen's light severing sword. Both his feet landed on the ground, and with a quick bounce, he instantly disappeared behind a stone pillar. Long Haochen's face revealed a trace of surprise, but he did not give chase. His feet stopped, and just like before, he once again used ready. Looking at his calm and tranquil appearance, it was obvious that he was not the least bit anxious. Hiding behind the stone pillar, Xing Xian was gasping for breath. No wonder he could become Big Sister No. 1's friend, a rank 5 expert. An assassin of the same rank would already be at a disadvantage against a knight, not to mention the difference in cultivation between the two. In just one exchange, he had suffered quite a bit. Moreover, looking at Long Haochen's dignified appearance, he did not seem to be tempted at all. If he could not fight head-on, perhaps he would have a chance by moving about. Thinking of this, Xing Xian was even more unwilling to go out. If I don't take the initiative to attack you, no matter how strong your ability to gather spiritual energy is, what use is it if you can't find me? Thinking of this, Xing Xian once again changed his position, and bluntly crouched there without moving. Long Haochen did not seem to be worried that he would not be able to find an opponent. Not only did he not stop his ready, but he also slowly closed his eyes. The competition grounds immediately fell into a state of silence. However, the judge did not stop the competition from continuing. As a rank 7 combat king, he naturally understood the ready skill very well. Once Long Haochen finished accumulating all of his spiritual energy, if he did not launch an attack, his spiritual energy would naturally dissipate, and he would lose the competition. This judge also wanted to see what Long Haochen could do. What he did not understand was why Long Haochen did not move, and instead chose to use this ready skill. Was it really beneficial to do so? Xing Xian, who was hiding in the dark, had been observing Long Haochen's situation. The more he observed, the more he did not dare to go out. Long Haochen's entire body had turned into a brilliant golden color because of the ready skill. The light element was terrifyingly dense, and could erupt with an incomparably tyrannical attack at any time. Xing Xian had no other choice. He could only continue to hide, and continuously use the assassin's breath control skill, not daring to make the slightest movement. Moreover, he also saw that Long Haochen's eyes were closed. However, with Kai Er's tyrannical closed eyes attack in front of him, how could he dare to be careless? Time passed by, and Long Haochen's ready skill lasted for a full 2 minutes. It seemed that 2 minutes was very short, but it was actually silent for 2 minutes during the competition, and this was not normal. At this moment, Long Haochen finally moved. The dense light surrounding his body quietly disappeared, and the light sword in his hand was raised. A blazing white light burst out, and in the time it took to take a breath, his light sword had become completely incandescent. Holy sword. Because the ready skill had brought him a huge amount of concentrated spiritual power when he used the holy sword now, he actually didn't have to go through the process of ready. Long Haochen's gaze turned towards a stone pillar. It seemed that he had already locked onto his target. Xing Xian, who was hiding, let out a huge sigh of relief. The stone pillar that Long Haochen was looking at was the exact opposite of where he was. Although the strength that Long Haochen had displayed was extremely strong, if his ready skill failed, perhaps he would still have a chance of winning. It would be best if it ended in a draw. That way, he wouldn't have to worry about Big Sister number 1 being dissatisfied. Just as Xing Xian was calculating in his heart, the light sword in Long Haochen's hand had already slashed out. The blazing white light transformed into a huge light blade that swept across the sky. What made Xing Xian incomparably shocked was that although Long Haochen was looking in a different direction, the light blade was pointing towards his position. Impossible, how could he find me? This was the only thought in Xing Xian's mind. However, how could he still dare to continue hiding at this time? Only the heavens knew how sturdy the stone pillar was. Even the warlord felt a certain amount of pressure from the holy light slash that Long Haochen had unleashed with the holy sword, let alone Xing Xian. That oppressive feeling made his heart subconsciously filled with fear. Xing Xian forcefully kicked off the stone pillar with both feet, and his entire body flew horizontally in an attempt to dodge Long Haochen's attack. However, at this moment, a red light suddenly flashed in Long Haochen's eyes, and Xing Xian, who was flying horizontally not far away, was instantly covered in a layer of red.